Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's 7 o'clock and we are ready to roll. Suzanne?
Thank you, Mayor Levy. I will take roll call. Mayor Levy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harvey.
Present.
Councilmember Carr.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Saunier.
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Here.
And Councilmember Schaefer's absent this evening.
And update on John Schaefer. He is progressing well, feeling better all the time. He is hopeful that he will be here in a couple weeks for our next meeting. So everyone continue to pray for John Schaefer. He's well on his way to recovery. That said, if you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. We will start this evening with Deb Miller and the annual presentation and update of the Greater Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for having me this evening. Always love it when there's a packed house because I know they just came here to hear about this. Absolutely. We're going to get started because you have a very packed agenda tonight.
We're good.
Are we good? Are we up and running? Yep. Watch my water for me. So, watch out. Isn't it appropriate that I ask you? It better be city water, shouldn't it? Absolutely. So, again, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman, City staff, thank you so much for having me this evening, and I appreciate City staff for working with me. I am typically here on the first meeting in October, but sometimes life gets in the way, and it did this year for me, and so I'm here now. And I am thrilled. I have some guests with me this evening that I want to introduce. I have the chairman of our board, John Thomason, is here tonight. I have Lenore Hotchkiss, who's on our board. I have Dale Schnitger, who's on the board, and Kim Monjeski, who is also on our board of directors, and City Manager David Buttery, who sits on our board as well. So they are here, and I appreciate their support that they give us for the Visitor Center contract and what we do. So we've got a really pretty picture up here that we're going to talk about here in just a second, but I really think it's important if I go to our next slide. Okay, we'll do that. I think it's important that we talk about what the mission of the Visitor Center is. Thanks, Sally.
Yep.
Turning.
You got an extra.
Oh, and we also have one that just walked in, and that is Dr. Jed Bowman from the school district, who is on our board of directors as well. So, in thinking how I was going to do this tonight, I thought it was really important to talk about what the Chamber does as far as our mission goes for the Visitor Center. For us, the fundamental thing that we look at is promoting the awareness of the city and the region as a destination for visitors. That's the main thing that we look at. That's what we're focused on. So how do we do this? How do we meet that? I'm going to go back to that really pretty slide with all the cool things on there. And on the right, you'll see that's our signature events poster. But not only do we distribute that, we have 5,000 rack cards that go out into hotel, motel rooms, that go out to attractions, go out to restaurants and businesses. In the middle is our brochure that is in the 10 visitor centers throughout Colorado. Over to the left, you see the map, which is Woodland Park and Teller County. And believe it or not, that printed material is the #1 thing we give out in the Visitor Center. Wouldn't you think somebody would use this to do maps? But they don't. They still do our map. We also have the profile book down at the bottom. You'll see the frame of our new commercial that we do. And in the middle is a mobile app. and we encourage people to download the mobile app. So if you want to know what's going on, you can figure that out through the mobile app. You can see all of that. So how do we market? What are the important things that we do? We work with KRDO News Channel 13. We do targeted television ads when we have special events going on up here. We've worked with Facebook. We do Twitter as well. We also look at our Comcast Media, and they target ads through Denver, Pueblo, Colorado Springs, and even Teller County. Comcast works with TDS up here, and so the ads that are going on are television ads. We want to pull our locals out, because when the locals come out, they spend sales tax dollars, and that goes into the city budget, so that's a good thing. We work with military cable ad through Fort Carson. Why do we do that? 55,000 people down on Fort Carson, and they're looking for things to do, and they can come up here for daycations, they can come up here for staycations. That's an important thing for us as well. Also working with Channel 13, we have our weather cam, and we get over 1,000 mentions per month with that weather cam. And let a great snowstorm come, and guess what? They're looking at our weather cam. What's our roads look like? What's going on? So that's a great return on investment. We work with the radio with KRDO as well. And then we also this year have worked with the Peterson Air Force Base, Schriever, and the Air Force Academy to do some print ads within their relocation books. Those are good things because people are coming to the region and they're looking for things to do. So, moving on, here is our website data. I'm not sure what it looks like up there, but this is not how it looked at the office. I apologize for the little mix-up here, but you can see that we've had 11% increase on the way people look mobile when they're looking at the website. They're looking at through their phones, they're looking through their tablets. You can also see the top 5 pages that we have hits that they spend about 2 minutes per session on is visitor information, lodging information, and our calendar of events. What does that say to me? That says that somebody's looking at coming to the region and they're trying to figure out where are they going to stay, what is there to do, what's happening in the region. So I think that's really important to note as well. Going back to the mission, how are we fundamentally promoting this region as a destination for visitors? So I love these statistics because I think it's important for people to understand when you look at the Teller County numbers, the Woodland Park numbers are built into that. So Woodland Park has 101 rooms. A lot of people believe we have a lot more than that. Now we will have more than that, hopefully in 2018. We were at the groundbreaking for the Microtel Hotel. They're going to add 60 more rooms. What does that do for us as a visitor center? We have more promotion we have to do. We have to fill those rooms. Why do we have to fill those rooms? It increases the lodging tax. That's more money into the city budget. Increasing sales tax, more money into the city budget. So again, that goes back to what our mission is. We looked this past year at having a little over 9,500 visitors that came through the center. It's no surprise to us that Colorado and Texas, we promote within Colorado. We promote doing the daycations, the staycations, and you know those Texans just want to get out of the heat. They're just tired of that heat, so they come up here. New to us this year was Oklahoma and Illinois. Our phone calls, again, go back to Colorado and Texas, looking at things. What are they going to do? How are they going to be here? Things like that. Moving on, and I'm talking very fast because you have a packed agenda tonight, and I want to get through this so you all can move on. We have 11 visitor center volunteers who give us 2,800 hours. That's a lot of donated hours, and they are fabulous. There's 2 things I put on here because I think this goes back to the return on investment as well, and that is, what's a whiteboard? Well, there are people who still travel and don't make reservations, and they show up on July 4th and they walk in and they go, "We're here!" And we're like, wow, okay. We turn to the whiteboard and we look to see what's available. They may have a pet with them. They may have a special needs. We get on the phone with lodging. We start calling and we make sure they have a place to stay. Again, dollars in the community, because they're not just going to lodge, they're going to buy food, they're going to go shop somewhere, they're going to buy gas. What are the lodging binders? These are binders that we put together that are out in every lodging room throughout, not just Woodland Park, but throughout Teller County. Why do we include all the county? Because those people come into our city, they buy gas, they eat here, they shop here. So we work with that. We have information. I always love it when we get somebody from Sea Level who walks in and they're like, we're going to climb the backside of the crags. We're going to the top today. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. Let's talk about altitude sickness. And we go through those things because what we want them to have is a great experience while they're here, because we want them to come back. And we do know, I've been here 12 years, and I do know we have repeat visitors that come back. Not only do those repeat visitors come back, but they end up buying homes here, and they end up being part of our community. So we're thrilled about that. So bottom line, return on investment, that's what you're interested in. So last year we had a contract with the city for $39,000. The operation costs were approximately around $47,000. How did we get to that? About $21,000 of that was advertising cost. We belong to a couple of tourism industry areas because we need to stay on top of this. Is it all social media we need to be going to? Are we still doing good with television ads? What do we need to be doing? So we go to the experts. Volunteer appreciation, those 2,800 hours, we have to say thank you, and we do it twice a year for those volunteers. Administrative costs are costs like copies, telephone. We have an 800 number that comes into the office, things along those lines. Believe it or not, when people come in, they want to know, what do you locals hike? Where do you go? We get all this other stuff. We want to know what the locals do. We have all that information, but we do all of that in-house. Insurance costs, covering workers' comp, covering property and casualty, and operations has to do with salary, because both of the paid staff, when it's busy, are working. But we're also doing the website updates. We're doing all of the other, making all the information, the hiking maps, all of that. We're working with all of that. So when bottom line, you want to know what your return on investment is. So what we do, and we have used the Dean Runyon Yearly Tourism Report. It's a national report that comes out every year. So how does a visitor center have an impact? We stay with the numbers we've been using the last few years, which is 40% on lodging, although Dean Runyon says a visitor center has 60%. We look at sales tax. We only use 5%. They say 10%. We look at property tax because, again, those visitors end up being residents here, and we help them find those locations. Dean Runyon says 2%. We use 0.5%. So I took the 2017 budget that you all passed. I looked at what your budgeted numbers were for lodging income, sales tax income, and property tax. And taking the numbers I used, the 40, the 10, and the 0.5%, came up to almost $56,000. So you look at your $39,000 investment that you made with us, that's a $5.40 return on investment. We are thrilled. We couldn't do this without our volunteers, we couldn't do this without the staff, and we couldn't do it without the support of our board. So I've gone very quickly through this. I want to say thank you, and we look forward to working with you for many more years to come. We're thrilled with what we do. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Deb. Council?
Thank you. Is it possible to get an email of your PowerPoint?
Yes, I can send that.
Hey, thanks very much. Great as always. I'm going to reiterate one thing you said. You have an amazing group of volunteers, and I've got to work with them for the last, I don't know how many years. Most of them have been here longer than I have, and I've been here forever. So God bless them, and God bless you for having that, and for feeling better. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. And Gina Salazzi for the proclamation for Children Literacy Week. If you'll just step to the podium and, I'm sorry, give us your name and your address, and you're free to go from there. I'm sorry?
And my phone number.
No, only if you'd like. Just for the record.
All right, Gina Salazzi, Executive Director, Children's Literacy Center.
Great. You got the floor.
Okay. I'm not under the impression that I was to read this, that I thought the proclamation was ready.
The mayor will read it into the record. We didn't know if you wanted to say something prior to the reading of the
No, we will
proclamation.
all thank you. And I mean, it's fantastic that this will get issued, and we love it. Here's what I'll tell you all, though, however, while he looks for the proclamation, because I'm thinking that's what he's doing. Literacy Week is coming up this month. Children's Literacy Center has had a tutoring site in Woodland Park for many, many years. We are at the library. We are there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I know a lot of you here, or several of you, have been volunteers for us, so we'd like to thank you for that. Kathy Skiles just came from tutoring tonight before she arrived here. We have a few students still on our waiting list, so we're always looking for more volunteers. So if anybody's interested in that, or if you know somebody whose students may be interested, we are always looking, and we need help to get the schools to refer kids to us. So you could be helpful to us in either way. Literacy Week, as I said, is coming up the second week in November. We will have a literacy event at the Woodland Park Library Thursday, November 16th. So if anybody wants to come by and see what it looks like to see this tutoring, it's one-to-one tutoring. It's fantastic. And I think it's at 4:30 to 5:30. So please come by, watch these students. It's fantastic. Talk to some of the parents, see what they think. We are changing lives, and it's really, really important. So thank you for inviting us. And did you find the proclamation?
Got the proclamation.
Did I buy you enough time?
Absolutely.
All right.
Help me understand about how many kids do you affect a year?
We tutor between 600 and 800 students a year, and we do that all with volunteers. So and we're a staff of 3 full-time employees. So it's like your visitor center. We have volunteers that are critical to what we do, but it's a remarkable way to change children's lives. I mean, if they're not reading, they're not doing any of this, and they're not staying in the community and becoming members that you want them to. So it's a remarkable program. We're going to enter our 25th year, starting in January. We have a 95% success rate. So 95% of our kids get better, and that's, again, you don't see that very often. So we're really proud of what we do. We do one thing, and we think we do it really well.
Great, if you'll just bear with us and stay there. I'll read the proclamation.
These are great. I love these.
We may have a question or two. Whereas the holiday called National Literacy Week was first observed in 1999. Whereas Literacy Week is celebrated nationwide and around the world. And whereas the extent to which a child can read and write proficiently by the end of 3rd grade will set the pace for his or her future academic achievement and success. Whereas low literacy rates directly correlate to poverty, a lower quality of life, and fewer employment opportunities. Whereas children represent the future of our community. Whereas it is the duty of our citizens to provide resources to our children so that they can succeed in school and life and become productive members of society. Now, therefore, I, Neil Levy, Mayor of the City of Woodland Park, do hereby proclaim November 13th through November 18th as Literacy Week in the City of Woodland Park, and encourage all citizens and businesses to join in the celebration thereof and to support efforts to engage all in reading a minimum of 30 minutes a day, support local reading programs, and support the local library system, dated this 2nd day of November. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Hopefully you've encouraged some people to come out and volunteer, because what you do is just amazing. I'm sure everybody would like to.
It's great.
Thank you.
If you would like to volunteer, you can go to our website, and it's really, really simple. It's at childrensliteracycenter.org. You can do it all online. You can do the training online. It's really very, very simple. And we take tutors from 14 years old and older. So high school kids that need community service are a huge resource for us. But it's very easy to get online, or call us and we'll come talk to you in person. We'll come talk to any groups or anything you need. So thank you.
If I'm not too old, I'm going to sign up tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, I don't know who's going to do this, Laura? Are you going to keep Woodland Park beautiful, or is Pat here? There she is, Pat Hislop. Just start with your name and address, please, if you will, Pat.
Hello, I'm Pat Hislop, and I live at 540 Sunny Glen Court in this beautiful town of Woodland Park, Colorado. I'm here as this year's chair for Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, and I'm here to give you our annual review. It was a great year. We once again did receive the Keep America Beautiful President's Circle Award for our efforts. We're very proud of that. We did get 5 new members, and I heard we might have another new one soon, and a new young ambassador as well. This year, we started the year with a, I'm sorry, slow down, breathe. With a strategic planning session. We went back to our mission statement to look at what we could do to even meet it better. And one of the things that we came up with was we wanted to improve our community outreach. One of our projects is we work with Woodland Park Arts Alliance with the art benches. We help to bring them in the spring, store them in Park State Bank, give them a little wash up. We bring them out in the spring, and we bring them in the fall, which will be this weekend. We hope to collect them, and we thank Carl Anderson for helping us out with his flatbed truck. Then we also, this year, are adding a mural. The Woodland Park Main Street Promotion Committee created 2 photo murals. I hope everybody's got a chance to see them. One's at Bergstrom Park. That's the Wildflower Train, but that's permanently located there. But the foot mural over in Woodland Square, we're going to also take on collecting that and storing it for them as well. Next is Bearware. That's the one near and dear to my heart. Part of what I think makes it magical to live in Woodland Park are the bears and the wildlife. And so the Bearware program we did, you all know because we presented here, was at Columbine Elementary with the help of Miss Warner and her art classes. We had Tim Croning with the Division of Wildlife with his fabulous volunteers do a presentation to the 2nd through 5th graders. After the presentation, they're asked to do a drawing that illustrates what they learned. We had 176 entries, and we selected one for each grade, and Mayor Levy presented them with an award here at Council. Then we had them displayed in the library for all to see. This year we added more to our Bearware, once again doing that community, working on the community outreach. We invited the Division of Wildlife to have a booth at the Chamber's Business After Hours in April at the Woodland Professional Building. That's when all the bears are waking up, so got to make sure everybody's ready for them. Then we also had booths at the Farmers Market, both in the summer and the winter. We had a booth at the Keller Williams Recycle event as well. And I just remembered, after seeing Debbie up here, we also gave some of our literature so that she could include it in some of the packets she sends out to people that want to move here as well. But the big new thing we did this year is we took some money from our budget and we bought a bear-proof trash can for the park as well. We also do a recycling program. That's another partnership with the Parks Building and Grounds and the North Teller Build a Generation. Over there, Karen. And the Teen Center happens over there. And so we work together with the teens and help with the recycling. We support them. Something we are working on, though, is getting a new small recycle depot built to help out with the teens recycling. Also part of that outreach and awareness, we do try to honor the members of our community that make an effort to have a nice lawn, a pretty yard. We send them a little card, and with the help of Foxworth, we give them a 25% coupon to help with those efforts. This year, we always do a beautification awards, which we're going to talk about a little bit later more. We also help try to promote Fountain Creek cleanup, and we were approached by the Victory Life Church. They had 50 volunteers that wanted to help clean up our town in September, and we found them some areas that needed some TLC, and they picked up 56 bags of garbage for us. Isn't that nice? Then the last big extra project we did this year is with Gary Rollins from, I don't know if you made it here yet, from 1-800 Water Damage. We did a Paint the Depot Day. We used some of the paint left over from our Lowe's grant last year where we painted the baggage building, which now I think is called the old Depot building, and we helped spruce up Bergstrom Park, or the rest area, as we all know now. And so we spruced that up. Two very programs we're proud to support are the Adopt a Garden program and the Adopt a Spot program. We have 4 gardens and 26 spots. In my review here, we said we had no new spots, but apparently we just had somebody fill out an application for a new spot. The Teen Center did take over a spot on Henrietta, and those industrious teens picked up already 360 gallons of trash this year. Our biggest event of the year is our annual cleanup. This year, Mother Nature decided we weren't going to do it the 3rd week of May. We were going to do it in the beginning of June. But we got it rearranged. 2 good things that came out of that this year was when we did our index, every year before we do our cleanup, we do a litter index. And out of a score of 1 to 4, 4 being the trashiest, we're at 1.98. So we've lowered that's our lowest number so far. So we are getting cleaner. The other great thing we did this year is we partnered with Sean Nielsen and Focus on the Forest, and so it was a big cleanup event where we had the forest being cleaned up while we cleaned up the town, and then we all came together for a party at the UPass Cultural Center on the pavilion, and we even had a live band this year. So it was lots of fun. So it's really important that everybody put on their calendar for next year, May 19th, Mother Nature, working with us, that'll be our next cleanup. For next year, some of the things that we want to look at, this came out of the walking audit. There is apparently a noxious weed problem in our town, and we would like to partner with some other groups, particularly the Teller Park Conservation District, to see if maybe we could help address that. And also, we've been asked to look into maybe helping to address the graffiti problem in town. Once again, I said our focus was the community outreach, and we want to thank Brian Kotchis, who was one of the founding members of Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, helping us revamp our website. And notice this all nice and pretty and mostly updated. And also a new member, Jody's going to help us with the updates. I just wanted real quick, because once again I know this is a busy night. If you check under the docs and form, of course it's not going to work for me now, hang on. Here we go. You can look at this annual report right there. Comes up for all to see. And then, now this might be the tricky part, see if I can get back to where I was. Here we go. And if we look under the galleries, you can check out some of the pictures. I'm just going to, real quick. Here was that fun day, painting the depot. Whoops. Painting the depot. See, it's all hard at work. So please check out our website. There's also forms if you want to adopt a spot, adopt a garden. We have the forms right there. If you want to join our committee, though we're almost pretty full, but we're always happy to have more active members. And then if you want to just check out some of the new things coming up, please check out our site. And now it's important to get to those beautification awards. So I would like to call up we're honoring our Adopt a Garden groups tonight. That's who we decided that they deserve those awards. So if the Gardeners with Altitude Garden Club, if there's anyone here to represent you, if you come on up. And that is led by Trudy Layton. They take care of the flower bed in front of the Williams Log Furniture off Highway 24. Just come on up over here. The next group is, and just stand up here, let everybody see how pretty you look. Then we also have the Teller Park Conservation District. Is Marissa here? There she is. I didn't see you behind Kay. Come on up. And that group takes care of the flower bed at the upper cabins of History Park. And what's really cool about that flower bed is it is a pioneer garden. It's really neat. We also have the Junior Achievement at Teller County with Sherry Albertson. There she is. They take care of the flower bed at the library. That's at the lower level, back door off of Midland. And then Foxbirth, Galbraith, I'm never sure how to pronounce that. Is that right? Yeah. That's Jim Olson's the lead on that, and they take care of the flower bed in front of the Pizza Hut, if you come on up. And then Mayor, I believe you're going to give them their awards. So the first one would be the Gardeners with the Altitude. I love that name.
Well, before I give the awards, as you all know, we're very proud and very concerned about the beauty of Woodland Park. And without these kinds of volunteers, we wouldn't be anything close to what we are. So I'm thrilled tonight, privileged on this day, for the council, for the city of Woodland Park. Everybody will be presented with their plaque and with the mayor's pin, and a really big thank you from the whole community for everything that you do. So thank you all very, very much. There you go. You'll find a place. Good.
So this is Junior Achievement of Teller County.
I know from experience that this gal does a great job. You brought the photography with you.
I did. And this is the Teller Park Conservation District.
This is Breckin Moore, so he was our student helper this summer, and he did so much work, so I figured he should
Yes,
be-
did a lot of watering for us.
Oh, you know what? Do I call the rest of everybody else from Keep Woodland Park Beautiful? It's here. Would you please come join us? Kay, Andy, Katie, I'm sorry. Oh, Jan, I'm sorry to see you guys.
Okay, once again, thank you very much. Maybe while I get back, I want to say
What I can I kept it.
Well, as council representative for Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, there's not too much additional I can say. It's a great group, and it's just so important to keep this community looking great and fresh as you have, and keep the depot looking great, and projects every year that we pick and choose, they're just super. And the volunteers are what make it happen. So thank you all so much, and all you leaders and volunteers, and certainly the city for their support. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. You know, you can hear it in Pat's voice, which is the greatest thing. She has that passion, and I know they all do, but from the leadership, outstanding. Great job. Pat, I didn't give you a pin. I'm sorry. Let's do that. Before I forget. Okay, we'll move on to additions, deletions, and corrections, and Suzanne has a change for us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Levy. This evening, we will move the discussion of the 2018 budget from new business to unfinished business. So
Okay.
Let's make that change.
Anything else, council? Okay, move on to the consent calendar, and Suzanne, you can lead these. We can take these one at a time. We can put them all together, and we'll let you start.
Okay. On tonight's consent calendar, we have the approval of the minutes of the October 5th, 2017 regular council meeting. We have the approval of the 2017 statement from September, statement of expenditures. And we have the approval of an El Paso Teller County Emergency Telephone Service Authority second amended and restated intergovernmental agreement. Thank you, Miles. And approval of the proposed Metro Vice Narcotics Intelligence IGA. And however you would like to handle those, we can handle them.
Let's take them all together, council. We'll start with anyone you'd like. If anyone has a question. Go right ahead, Val.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Miles, would you like to give us a little bullet point summary on the two items on the consent calendar, please? Just real quick.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For the El Paso Teller 911 Authority IGA, it's a pretty boilerplate IGA. We've done this a number of years. They recently increased their tax to $1.40 from 7 cents, and actually, I'm sorry, $1.35, and that's going to have a direct impact on their ability to provide stipends for us. Currently, it's looking favorable for that to happen at the end of this month, but until it's finalized, I'm just not sure. On the other IGA with VNI, this is something we've been doing for a number of years. We have a individual assigned undercover that works on a lot of the drug issues and intelligence issues between Teller County and El Paso County. This person is also our go-between whenever we have expensive cleanups like a meth lab, a grow, butane hash oil explosion, or something like that. They handle a lot of the large-scale operations for us, and without participating in that, we'd be stuck with a $10,000 to $20,000 bill each time we had a large cleanup like that.
Is there, I assume there's no additional impacts going forward?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Continuing what's been done before.
Correct.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move approval of all 4 items as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Thank you. Carr,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Soinier,
Yes.
Sawyer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Suzanne. And we'll move on, unfinished business and discussion of the 2018 budget. For those that haven't been with us, I'll give you a little background and try to give you a sense of where we're going. We would like the budget to come to council November 16th for initial posting, which gives us about 2 weeks to complete the process. We started the process about 3 weeks or so ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, I'm sorry, and went through the entire budget and with the finance director and had a couple of work sessions. And the last work session we had was this past Monday. Number of concerns came forward that we're going to try to answer today and continue the conversation. That said, I'm going to say this. This is an emotional issue for council, for everybody in our community. And so I'm going to, as always, let anybody speak. We're interested in everybody's opinion, if you will. And so when you come to the microphone, when it's your turn, please keep that in mind. We want to counsel. Sometimes we don't do a great job of maybe agreeing to disagree. We can disagree and be respectful. So that's kind of the approach I would like to take tonight and through this whole process. So with the goal being November 16th, we are probably going to have 1 or 2 more work sessions, which will be open to the public. Tonight, we're going to work as long and as hard as council wants to, and we'll go as far as you all want in this process tonight, knowing that 2 weeks from today, we'll be posting, initial posting, excuse me. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I noticed
Sir.
we've got a couple other items afterwards, so maybe we want to put some sort of limit on it to get to those items.
Absolutely, whatever you all want. I'll tell you what, the items that follow this are minimal. I don't think they take 30 minutes altogether. If you think, how about we go to 10:30 tonight, and at 10 o'clock we stop the budget process, unless we finish before that. Is that fair? We want to get it done. If you guys want to stop anytime, let us know. Just remember what the goal is going to be, and that's November 16th. 2 weeks we'll be here before you know it. That said, we will start, and I'll let Mr. Buttery lead the discussion.
Thanks, Mayor. We're excited this evening again to come to council and the community to continue the dialogue on the budget. From our work session on Monday night, we heard from Councilmember Sawyer and Councilmember Carr and Councilmember Soinier and others. We had a couple of documents delivered to us And that's what I thought we could start with tonight, is a review of Councilmember Sawyer's 2018 budget recommendations. I was able to get those out to council yesterday. I think, audience, there are some copies in the back. The vast majority of this discussion will follow your format. And my thoughts were, after the staff reviewed this, was to just make some comments and then staff recommendations. My goal would be for the council to reach as much of a consensus as you could on each of the topics. I also then did some work with Councilmember Carr's recommendations, brought his recommendations into a document that you also have that overlap those from Councilmember Sawyer. So if we just do it topically, then we may be able to move forward with at least some general thoughts, or whether the staff needs to do additional work on those areas. Is that a reasonable approach, council? Is that okay?
And how do you want to do this? Do you want to make your statements and then each statement have a rebuttal? Or do you want to make your statement in entirety and then come to discussion?
Let's just do it topically, each of the topics, and then, then council can wrestle with that and go from there.
Let's do this.
Okay. One of the things that was requested of us at the Monday night work session was to allow council to hear the other side of the story. And so we will do just that. To start with, several council members have stated, and all would agree, as do I, that other than times of disaster, the financial health of the city is probably your most important responsibility. You execute that responsibility using policy governance, as we have discussed on numerous occasions, including discussion with City Attorney Aaron Smith and Tammy Tenoy from SRSA. Through our goals and objectives process, where you hear input from the Planning Commission and staff, you discuss these ideas and your own, and then you establish goals and prioritize them into what I call the whats. Then you turn it over to staff to execute it, to figure out how we will make it work. And I give an example of whats versus hows, but I think you understand that. The general fund reserve was knowingly stretched in 2017 with Memorial Park renovation and the Woodland Aquatic Center project. Council and staff worked very hard to approve a budget for 2017 that improved the fund balance, and it is projected to be even better as 2017 draws to a close. The proposed 2018 budget also reflects improvement in the fund balance and fund balance reserve. We've kept up very well with employee compensation by using our periodic salary surveys and by the implementation of our merit-based pay-for-performance system. While 2 police officer positions were frozen for 2017, we were able to unfreeze one in mid-2017 and after the positive audit results, and the staff is prepared to unfreeze the other position at council's direction. So what we'd like to do now is focus on the whats of Council Member Sawyer's recommendation. He recommends a 5% increase to employees' compensation. He thinks that should be around a $50,000 in addition or so to the budget as laid out. The staff comments, the draft budget proposes a 3% pool of funding for merit-based pay-for-performance compensation increases. Each additional percent would cost about $40,000 in the general fund and about $14,000 in the city's other funds. Therefore, the 2% difference between his suggested 5% and the staff's proposed 3% would add about $80,000 to the general fund and about $28,000 in the other funds. The staff's recommendation to the council is that we are not opposed to increasing employee compensation above the 3% in the proposed budget. Council can keep the proposed increase. You can go below the proposed increase or go above the proposed increase. Council should, however, consider the effect that this addition and any other budgetary decisions will have on the fund balance reserve. Staff will implement any compensation increase adopted with this budget according to our merit-based pay-for-performance system. So if council will allow, I just want to, if we could, because we're doing it by topic, let me review Councilmember Carr's suggestions on the same topic, and then you can have discussion. And again, those were provided to you. The title of this is Councilmember Carr's 2018 Budget Recommendations, Part 1. It's on page 2 of that document. Councilmember Carr makes the statement that, quote, because Woodland Park has been using the wrong salary baseline model for over a decade, the current salaries in general are inflated above market rate. Our comment to that is council had at its number one priority after the general statement of strengthening the fund balance, raises for employees. We do not make our salary decisions based on any inflation rate. Councilmember Carr further on page 2 says the wages of city employees whose workload is impacted by the season, for example, parks, buildings, and grounds and street, are not reduced to reflect this diminished workload. Our comment is we're not aware of any diminished workload. In fact, with the addition of Memorial Park and the Aquatic Center, the workload has expanded with the same number of personnel to take care of the buildings and grounds. Also on page 2, he states our city employees are paid much higher. This is a conclusion he makes from information provided on page 1 of his document, which you have. Our comment is he uses the proposed pay plan that's in the budget as a reflection of actual salaries. That's not the case. The pages reflect the pay ranges for each grade. The column entitled Woodland Park Midpoint Salary isn't the salary, it's the midpoint of the range. And the city manager is not included in this document. My salary is negotiated with the council. I'm not familiar with Teller County salaries or ranges, but I do know that we have different requirements for many of our positions. For example, we require that our Public Works Director, who is also our city engineer, be a college graduate and be a licensed professional engineer. Teller County does not require that in their Public Works Director. The reason we do a salary survey is to make sure we're in line with similar communities, and we are. I did speak with the Teller County Administrator, and the information quoted about Teller County is out of date. She also said that the list that is titled Teller County Midpoint Salary was actually their starting salaries for those positions. According to her, the county will be doing a salary survey later this month. Please keep in mind also that any county structure is vastly different than a municipal structure. Counties have separately elected officials for law enforcement, finance, and so on. County commissioners are significantly more involved in day-to-day operations of a county than most city councils. Further, our salary survey uses the following organizations in the process: cities and towns of Colorado Springs, Cripple Creek, Fountain, Gunnison, Montrose, Salida, Monument, Estes Park, El Paso and Teller counties, the water and sanitation districts of Fremont County, Woodmore, and Whitefield, Colorado Springs Utilities, and the state of Colorado. Denver, Boulder, and Greeley are not used. On page 3 of his document, Councilmember Carr makes the recommendation that, quote, council should limit the increase to 1% for merit increases only or zero raises to attempt to recover past CPI misuse. 1% is still very generous given that city salaries are so high compared to other governments in our region. Staff comment, there's been no CPI misuse. Staff recommendation, and it's the same recommendation that we made with Councilmember Sawyer's memo, and that's that we're not opposed to increasing employee compensation above the 3% proposed budget. You can keep the proposed increase, go below or go above. Just consider the effects on the overall fund balance, and we'll implement whatever you direct us to implement. So those were the two topical components, or the one topical component from the two different documents that you saw Monday night. So Mayor, I would open it up for council discussion.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your hard work. And Kenny, you get to start.
Well, thought about this a lot, and it is difficult because we're talking about a lot of different areas. But the number one thing we talked about in April in our discussions, April 19th, in our goals and objectives, was to get back to the 10% level at least in our reserve. Because we had a really good year. We had a tough year to do the Aquatic Center, to do Memorial Park, to the maintenance facility. We've done some great things. We need to not forget that. But it came at a price, and it was tough, and we made it through there. But we can't just turn it around overnight. It takes a little while to work back out of that, and we're doing that, as we're seeing, I think, in some of the budget items that are happening, and that's good. So I think the number one thing is we need to keep the goal of that 10%. We need to work towards that. And if that means, unfortunately, that the employee salaries have to be at the 3% level, not the 1% we're talking about, I'm okay with that. Unfortunately, if that puts it off for another year for the employees, If the staff can come back with an alternative or a way to raise that money to help pay those employees more, that would be great. But at this point, I would be happy keeping it at that because we need to get back to 10%. I have a friend, a close friend in Edgewater, and they work on about a 15 or 20% margin. And he was surprised that we were working 10. It's very important we not forget that. But also that we've had a good year. Getting these things this community has wanted, but it came at a price, and it was tough. But we did it, and we're there. We just can't turn it around overnight, and I think that applies to all these things we're talking about tonight. And it's tough, because everybody has their own priorities and what they want. But we need to get back to that 10%. It won't happen this one year either. It'll take a little while, but we'll get there. And things are getting better already. So that's all I would say regarding that.
Great, and I appreciate that. Can I question for you, just so I understand? I'm trying to get back to 10% on one hand, but I'm not sure what increase you're in favor of at this point. Are you in favor of the 3%?
The 3% that's already been proposed.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Go ahead, Carol.
Well, I'd go back to the point that Ken made with the session that we had in April on the 19th. Well, first off, the budget process is ongoing. It didn't start the day that Mike Farina delivered the draft budget. It started the day after we adopted the last budget. A touchstone for the council was that work session in April. And I'll remind everyone that, as Ken said, our number one concern at that point, and our guidance to David and the staff, is that we balance all demands, attempting to strengthen the general fund and get it back to 10%. But our top priorities, our top 5 priorities from this council were raises for employees, a finance accounting system, which I think Mike and Val have discussed, and maybe this is not the year to do that, release the hiring freeze, get back on track with the vehicle replacement plan, and a police department fence, which is something that Noel had suggested at our work session on Monday. I think with the exception of Paul, and I'm not sure that Paul disagreed with it, I just don't have that in my notes as Paul recommending the salary raise, but the rest of us all recommended a salary raise. But I do agree with Ken. I think the staff has done quite a bit of homework in figuring out how to balance expenses with revenue and still come up with the 3% raise for a merit-based raise for the employees. And I also recommend that we stay with that.
Hey. Noel, you proposed 5%. You want to go next?
Yes, I would like to go next. Why are we punishing the employees for our choices to bring in the Aquatic Center, Memorial Park, and these other big projects? Why do the employees have to suffer? So one of our biggest, one that I actually brought up at the last budget meeting was, if we can't give them raises this year, let's give them raises next year, or merit increases. It doesn't sound like we're really trying hard enough to do that. So once again, I go back, why are we punishing the employees for big wants in this community? I go back to the list here of employee compensation, and I wish we had gone in the order that I had presented them, because the order I had presented them was showing savings, and then spending. We started with the Main Street, then we went to special projects, and we had a surplus of money that we could put towards the employee raises. So as the audience out here is listening to this 3% to 5%, and if I look at these numbers, you're saying it's $108,000, the 80 and the 228,000, is that correct?
The general fund and the utility funds combined, yes.
If you go with my recommendations and the way I present them on Monday night, we had $269,000 to spend. So that was plenty to give employees that raise from 3 to 5. So once again, I reiterate, our primary goal was to the employees, because they had to suffer for 1 year for our big projects. I think this is the year that we show our appreciation and we find that money. And I found the money, and it was real simple. All I looked is for things that were overlapping jobs. Things that two departments were doing the same. But once again, let's not punish these employees. Let's show our appreciation for them having to wait another year without any raises. Yes, they had small merit increases, 3%. That's not a lot. I mean, if you really calculate that over 12 months, it's very minimal. So, thank you.
Sure, Val?
I'll defer to Paul first, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I deeply appreciate that, Val. Number one, let me say I was so naive when I came in on goals and objectives, and even when I come into these meetings. All I want to be is a good counsel and listen to the people and try to make sound judgments on what I hear and what I learn through these meetings. I always come with notes. Forget that. I have learned through these gentlemen and through the city staff that it is proper to put your ideas on paper, in type, so it can be handed in, so that it can be looked at, evaluated, and you can talk back to me that way. So I prepared a paper. That is my ideas when I looked at Val and Sawyer's sheets, and I looked at it and said, what can I support and what I can't support, my feelings. May I read it?
Please.
And I will give each a copy of it after I read it. I started with a statement like they did. I am deeply troubled by the budget as present. With a dangerously low reserve and a large unknown risk of the aquatic center, I expected a conservative budget would be to move our community toward a safer financial position. 2018 city tax revenue paid by the citizens of Woodland Park are expected to be the highest in the history, giving us an example. Highest in history, giving us ample opportunity to put a little money back in the piggy bank we've emptied. However, instead of any savings at all, the people have been given a financial plan that spends every penny of new money and the last of what is in savings on top of it. I can best describe it as a high-risk government spending paid by the taxpayers at the worst possible time. I do not believe it is consistent with the will of the people that elected me. I will not support the liberal agenda it represents. Now is the time to recover from years of progressive spending and return to conservative principles that will put us on solid financial grounds again. I ask, does anybody in this audience or on this council agree with me? It's okay if you don't. I have no problems with it. I looked at the situation, employment compensation. I do agree with Councilman Sawyer's position. I don't agree with Council Sawyer's position of 5% or the city staff recommendation of 3% increase in employee compensation. I will, however, support a 1% increase. Security. I support Councilman Sawyer's position on security cameras for City Hall and Memorial Park. I would also add cameras to the Aquatic Center for security reasons. Police Department. I support Councilman Sawyer's position to unfreeze current frozen police officers' position immediately and the position be filled as soon as possible. I am open to a salary adjustment for 2018, but would need better understanding of dollar amount. I would suggest it would be for entry-level and intermediate positions only, and allow chief to complete salary studies and make recommendations to council at a later time for consideration. Special projects. I support Councilman Sawyer's and Carr's position to eliminate this department. Main Street. I I support.
Excuse me, Paul. Since we're going to take this subject by subject, can we keep this to salaries right now?
Just number one.
Or do you want to?
Number one, I'm
And then we'll come-
almost at the end. but
I'm sorry, we'll come back to you when your points are relevant. We'll call for those. Just because everybody said, we'll go point for point.
I totally
Is that
agree
okay?
with that.
Thank you. Val?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have a statement also, and I'll go to 911. I've been worried about spending habits for 2+ years. I know our elected task is oversight, not operations, but to oversee the city requires understanding it and not just blind faith in it. I think it's an important role to sit here on behalf of the citizens, which is why I've spent so much time researching their large vehicle fleet and so many other major components of their budget. The committees and my extensive work on this tells me that we can make modest reductions in many different areas of the budget with virtually no impact on service levels. Quite frankly, I think we'd all agree the city gets high marks for overall performance. The properties are well maintained. Well, downtown needs some improved attention, but we're looking at that. The permits get issued. The police department is very efficient. Mike and the finance department are excellent, et cetera, et cetera. I think we should throttle back on growing service levels for a while, but this budget does the opposite. It grows spending without any urgent need whatsoever. I'm feeling conservative right now. I think Paul just said the same words, and think we're safer by budgeting for a reasonable surplus at this time. This is not the time to have a budget that lowers our reserves yet again. I'd like to enter this into the record, if you would, please. I'll send a copy down. I have a new one of these things, so I'll just go to number one.
Pass those afterwards.
Yeah.
And this is still relative.
It is. I'm just gonna hit the one.
No problem.
Yeah. So I put a cover page on this thing. I tweaked a couple of things from last time, and I put a budget synopsis, which is helpful for talking points and me to just boil everything down. There's a lot of detail in it, but number one, employee compensation. I'm at the position to give a 1% raise package for merit and lower range employees, despite making all kinds of other discussions and arguments in favor of different positions than the city and Councilman Sawyer have laid out. And I'll just stop there.
Okay. Anybody else?
Like I say, I reviewed his one that he passed out a couple of days ago, and I can support the 1% raise package.
Oh, no, that was what he wanted to enter into the record.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, council, we're from 1% to 5% and somewhere in between. And again, we're going to have to make a decision at some point. We have some that are signed up tonight for public comment. We can call them up if they want to speak to this particular issue, or we can wait until the end of the process. If you want to get their input now, or if you want to wait until later, you tell me. The other point is pretty simple. We're going to have a lot of these discussions tonight. At some point, we're going to have to make a decision. We don't have to make it tonight, and we don't need to make it tonight. We need to do that so we can present a budget November 16th. So we may have a number of work sessions. Any other discussion on this I think would be appropriate now. I'm going to just say something from, from the private side. This year, and it's not easy, trust me, it's difficult in my business. We're hit with a major increase in minimum wage. And so this was voted on by our community. It's not something we implement ourselves. I trust you all agree with that. And the point is that this community, along with El Paso County and the whole state, voted for an increase of almost 10% a year for the next number of years in minimum wage. So they're saying something about the wage that our people are paid. And I understand it's in the private sector, but it maybe is a good representation, at the least, of what our community feels. So I just wanted to make everyone mindful of that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear from anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this particular topic, and I'd like to also make a recommendation that we give clear guidance to the city manager and the staff on this particular issue tonight.
I agree. That's it. We have a number that have signed up, and they're all signed up for 6A, and some I'm sure that aren't signed up. So as you know, my approach is anybody speaks when the time comes. This is the time, if you want to speak relative to salaries. If you want to speak more generally, we'll wait for that discussion until the end. Anybody right now? Okay, Carol?
Oh, no, I was expecting to hear comment from the audience. Guess this one is not at the top of their list. Well, that being said, sir.
If you'd like to, well, I'll tell you, what I'm soliciting is the same conversation that we're having here. If you have something relative to salaries for the city, somewhere between 0 and 5% is what we're discussing, increase for next year. If you have something more general, then we'll wait on that until the end. Let's put it this way, if you feel like it fits in right now, then you're more than welcome.
I have one point, though, I'd like David to make a clarification. When the proposal is for a 3% increase in salaries, that's a merit-based pool. That does not mean every employee receives 3%. Some may not receive any. The maximum amount an employee, based on performance, not like we do in the federal government where you just get paid because you persevere and come to work every day. It's based on performance. And it means that some folks won't get a raise and some will get 1%, some might get 0.5%. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's been our philosophy to use that a bell curve approach to that, where the vast majority of the employees would be somewhere in the middle. But that 3% is a pool of total salaries. So historically, order of magnitude ranges when there's a pool provided from 0. I think the highest was 6.5% one year. There have been years, though, that when the funds have been slim, that we've substituted time off for pay. And we could do that this year. Now, I'd rather not do it total because we would continue to fall further behind. We didn't reach the levels that the market survey told us to last year, and so this year helps us get there a little bit closer. But one of the things that we've done in the past is when there seems to be a lack of funding, we also do pay for performance with days off as well. So it could be that combination, and that may provide some other conversation by the council.
Thank you. Paul?
May I say, I find this very interesting information for me, because I did not know how this money was pooled and dispersed.
Did you assume everyone was going to get 3%?
I did.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing that information up.
So
This is the way I learn.
So, just for clarification, we don't have to spend all the money, correct? We don't have to spend the total pool of the 5%? Or do you?
Or 3%.
Or 5%?
Whatever the percent is, no, we don't have to, but that's what you've allowed me to reward employees with on a scale based on their performance. So yeah, I use it all because that's what you provided for that pay for performance process. So we do reward high performers. We don't reward mediocre or low performers.
Okay, and maybe I need some guidance here. In the budget, was there a place where each employee did get a raise?
Within each of the departments and divisions, with each of the different funds, for example, if you will turn to page 17 of the budget, I randomly picked that. It's Parks, Buildings, and Grounds. Within the very first expense line under salaries and benefits, that number that's shown in the budget includes 3%. And that 3% trickles all the way through the benefits as well. So as we've done this year and in all previous years, we've included what that pool amount would be that we're proposing within the salaries. So the budget already includes 3% pool.
Okay, so that's very interesting because maybe I missed that completely. So we're already giving a 3% raise.
Correct. That's what the proposed budget does. That's what was included in the budget message, that we would do that 3% pool. And then it's utilizing the pay for performance that does the range from 0 to.
Then I will back my 5%, go back to 3% because I want that money to go to the police officers.
I want it to go to every employee that
Well, they're already
deserves
getting
it.
a raise. I understand. I missed that part.
I think you
No,
misunderstand.
you still misunderstand.
Pose your question to me again, please. sir.
Okay, so the employees are already getting a 3% increase.
It's in the
What's
budget.
proposed that is in the budget,
I understand that part. It's proposed.
yes, sir.
And that's fine with me. I don't mind a 3% raise. I would like a 5%, but if the merit is 3 to 5,
It's actually 0 to 5. It
Right.
depends on the performance of that employee.
correct, but based on what you're proposing here, you're already giving them a 3%.
Not individually, it's collectively across the
Correct, that's what
entire organization.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. You're giving everybody a blanket 3%.
No, on average, but if employee A is really on the verge of no longer being employee A, they're not going to get much of a pay raise. If employee A is a superstar, they're going to get more than 3%. So it's an average across the entire organization.
Okay, so you're asking for a 3% pay increase and a 3% merit.
No, sir. It's
You're asking for
combined.
3%, it's combined.
Yeah, if there's $100 in the budget for all salaries in 2017, for 2018, I'm asking you to approve $103. I'm asking for that 3% increase in that pool of money. And then we do annual evaluations. Department heads make recommendations to me. We fuss and cuss about it, and then we merit out that pool of money that equates to 3% of the previous year's salaries of all employees. So it's a 3% pool.
Okay, so now I understand the numbers when you say 80,000, and because it's already on top of that 3%.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's in addition to what's already there.
I go back to my 5%.
And one of your concerns was police. Understand that the 3% is part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for all employees.
So that would bring them up to 41, 42.
The 2018 starting for a police officer 1 is, I think, 41,477.
Yeah, I've got it right here. It's
Yeah,
41,477.
41,477.
Okay, well.
So that's the baseline range. That's the starting. That's what an entry level officer would come in as.
Right, and we'll have that discussion shortly, but that still doesn't get our applications on the table.
Understand that. That's a separate
All right.
discussion.
I'm still at 5% then.
Okay.
Val?
So it's 2% more than what we've proposed, which is that 80,000 in the general fund and 28,000 increase in the enterprise fund to get to your 5% level.
Got it.
Thank you.
Looking, excuse me, at your prelude, I noted the 2% was the average salary, and you were asking for 3. At one point, I heard a 1% merit package, so 2% in general, 1%. Excuse me, pardon me. Extra merit.
No, sir.
I know it doesn't say that, but I decided to hear that.
Correct, but I think you're on page C of the budget message.
Correct.
Yeah, there's several components that go into this 3% pool. It's the market survey that helps us decide that. The market survey is what causes us to adjust our pay ranges. And so the market survey this year revealed that our pay ranges should shift 2%, so that incoming people would make 2% more than incoming people did the previous year. Stop. Cease work. Move to a different subject. Now we're talking about the merit pay system, which is a percentage above the previous year's pool of money. So they really are two very separate things.
Can you performance of the raises in 2016 and 17?
Yes. Good question, thank you.
No, I can't. I believe, well, maybe I can. I believe 2017, I can't, but I'm going to ask Chrissy.
1.9.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
1.9.
1.9 was 2017. Do you recall what it was for 2016? Okay. If that's important to council, would you go to my bookshelf, please, and bring my 2016 budget, please, ma'am?
Thank you. While Chrissy does that, we'll have further discussion. No?
1.9%. Yeah, the employees, we punish the employees for big projects, and so I think this year is our year to show our appreciation. And 5% is $100,000. We have the money. Out of an $8 million budget, we have the money. And I'm pretty sure Dave's very good at it. He can find it.
It's 1.8, it's 108 for each percent, isn't it? Something like that. Isn't that what it is?
No.
Well, it is. It's 108,000 across the entire organization. No, I beg your pardon. It's not. It's half of that. It's 54, so it was 40 and 14
Right, it was
for each percent.
80 and 28.
So 40 in the general fund, 14 in the combined enterprise fund of water and wastewater.
So,
So that's the price tag for that effort.
Great. While we wait, we'll go to the podium, and sir, if you'll just give us your name and address.
My name is Kurt Brennan, Woodland Park. I actually signed up on behalf of Mary Jo Larson. She wanted to be here and wasn't able to because of other civic obligations that she has. And so I agreed that I would read a statement from her. I don't think she needs any introduction. Probably everybody knows Mary Jo Larson. And if you don't, I guess you should be embarrassed, right? Is this okay? Is this working, or is it?
Just need to raise it a little bit.
Or is it turned off so we can't hear it on the audio like most of the things? Neil, it's a little general, but it's kind of specific too. So I don't want to sit here and parse whether it falls in general or specific. I don't think that serves us well, so I'll just get it out of the way. As owner of the Cowhand, chairperson of the Downtown Development Authority, and president of the Saddle Club, maybe I should try to take on her voice. You understand this is Mary Jo talking now, right? Okay. As president of the Saddle Club, I could not have a more heartfelt commitment to the prosperity and quality of life in our city. I deeply love Woodland Park. So every policy, every decision that comes up in this room is personal to me. My personal family stayed engaged and watchful of what happens in this room since 1952, as I do today. I'm concerned now that our future must be respectful to the lessons of our past. New growth and prosperity are necessary, but do it right and it will be delightful. Nobody is closer or better informed of the dangerous decline of the DDA that took us to the brink of failure. Nobody understands better than I the effect that changing to a conservative fiscal policy and other policies has had to bring a wonderful turnaround to get the DDA back on a responsible course. That's kind of the news item of this year, in my opinion. I guess I should editorialize here. I see you now faced with the same challenge that we were. I want to encourage you to stay utilitarian, stay on the path set by the culture of Woodland Park. Be wise, you are spending our future. I want to be clear that I stand for the policies and ideas reflected in Mr. Carr's proposal for budget policy because of the level-headedness and the utilitarian character of that approach. I encourage you not to fall victim to the seductive appeal to other people, to overspend other people's money. Thank you, and I wish you the best in the task ahead. I'd like to add just a couple more remarks that we talked about and that I just sort of have notes on. I also added some notes from the discussion here today. I'm really taken aback by the notion that not giving government employees a higher raise than almost any of the constituencies that you represent, is punishing them. That's an interesting bumper sticker, but I don't think it has anything to do with reality. The other thing that kind of shocks me, I'm a business person, a fairly successful business person, as you probably know. I've been successful in starting other businesses here in town. Businesses don't operate like this. We don't go around and see if we can find other government agencies that pay more than we do, and so therefore our people have to make as much as they do. And the next time they come to us, and they kind of ratchets, and pretty soon government people are in general paid more than the people in the real economy. I hate calling it the private sector because it's not a sector of the economy, it is the economy. In fact, almost any survey, that if you're willing to look at it objectively and pick out ones that are scientific at looking at skill levels, market values of people, local government people across the country make about 20% more than their equally skilled people in the real economy. At the federal government level and the higher salary levels, that number goes to about 80% more than, and then these are, I could bring out study after study. I don't think you guys like to do that kind of research, so I won't bother. All of the data that has been presented here is comparing to this government to other governments. Well, can't lose it, can you? There's an assumption there that the people who work for this government have such unique skills that they can't be compared to I compare the skills of the people who I know in the city government to the skills of the people we have at the hospital. You guys make more. Overall, for skill, you make more, and Noel says you're being punished. Carol says we need to be giving them what they deserve. I'd like to know, how do you determine what they deserve? It has to be fair, right? Right, so who decides fair? That's a rhetorical question because it's kind of the standard liberal thing of fair. I get to decide, and if I disagree with you, then I'm right. And then so we fall on these things where we look at government surveys compared to government surveys, never even look to see what somebody with the same skill was making at Foxworth. How often have you done that, Mr. Buttery? that doesn't bring up good results. Finally, for somebody to come here for such a solemn, important, there's nothing more important to employees and to the people who pay the bills than compensation levels. I know that from 40 years in business. It's a terribly sensitive topic. Everybody's sensitive to it. And yet, a councilman comes in here recommending a 5% raise and didn't know until just a few minutes ago how the salary administration system works. You just learned a few minutes ago how it works, and yet you came in here defending 5% not knowing anything about it. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, Kane.
Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I forget this, and if I did my knee, you see me go down on the ground. Thank you.
You up.
Thank you. Dave, do you have those numbers? Or no?
Oh, I do. I'm sorry. And Councilman Carr, I'm going to come back to an answer I gave you a few minutes ago and make a correction to that. But in 2016, the triennial survey, the salary survey that we do, the full-blown survey, not the one that goes to all those other different communities, revealed that on average our salary ranges were 5.5% below our comparable and competitor entities. So what I said in the 2016 budget was 5.5% was too much of an adjustment in a single year to come to grips with. And so what I proposed was a 4% pay for performance increase pool, with the hope that then in future years we could continue to close that larger gap. Well, that future year was 2017 when we went with 1.9. It didn't help close the gap. So this year does a little bit, not very much. So It was 4% in 2016 when the triennial survey said it should have been 5.5%. So how I misspoke was that the pool does include the adjustment as well. So what I tried to do is the salary adjustment that's suggested by the survey is what I look for every employee to get, because the ranges change. And so your statement about the 2% is generally accurate for 2018, that everyone would get something for that adjustment range. Unless they really are not performing at all, then I can go all the way to 0. So then that 1% is the pay for performance, but it's the pool that I get to work with to utilize across the entire organization.
David, to what Mr. Grinna said, tell me a little bit about the biennial survey.
Mayor, it's actually a triennial.
Excuse me?
No, that's fine. I'm holding my hands. Yes, it does compare governments to governments. I won't argue that point at all. It compare in our survey to what we think of as like-sized, like-located cities, and also what we think of as our competitors. Colorado Springs, Cripple Creek Fountain, State of Colorado, sanitation districts. For different areas of our organization, it makes sense to compare them to those different entities. This survey also takes into account other market conditions, but it does primarily rely on other governments. Mr. Grinna's point is one that I've wrestled with. You know, is this an iterative process where we're trying to raise each other up? I don't agree with his conclusion. I do think that there's a portion of this that is a rate-related, an inflation rate-related component of this. I certainly don't agree with his assessment on like-for-like salaries. I know that we've hired a couple of professional people in the organization that took about a 33% pay cut to come here. I don't think I can compare, I don't know the salary structure at Foxworth Galbraith. I don't have any delivery truck drivers. I have certified, trained technicians, distribution and collection people, CDL licensed folks that do a myriad of other things other than drive a truck. I'm not disparaging Foxworth at all. They provide a great service. But it's real difficult to compare some portions of our job descriptions to others in the private sector. So there's some that compare favorably and others that are vastly different. A licensed professional engineer may have a similar skill set, but I can tell you that from my experience, those in the private sector in that role do make more. But I think what we're looking for is what's fair and what's appropriate for our employees.
And what's affordable for the city.
No question. Val?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really wasn't going to get into all my thing here, but I'd like to enter this into the record eventually. It's same, it's whatever, it's a bunch of pages. On page 2, the council has it, some other people have it.
Of the new one, Val?
Yeah, the new one. Yeah, throw the old one away.
Okay.
Please. I made an attempt to look at, believe it or not, coming from the private sector, which is the economy, as Mr. Grinna says quite capably. Coming from that, we're quite used to not getting raises. In fact, not taking salaries for quite extensive periods of time. But I did a comparison against Teller County, which has got 23,000 people in its umbrella, versus Woodland Park, which has about 8,000. And I won't go through the details, but in general, and city manager has pointed out that there's some shift in these because some are midpoints and some aren't midpoints and things. So, but they're still 18 to 32% higher for Woodland Park midpoint salaries. Even if you adjust that a little bit, maybe it's down to 20% at the high, but it's still higher. It's very much higher. And so that's the point I would make. I'm not going to sit here and argue, this job versus that job, but I did lay it out here. This will be in the public record eventually. The citizens can look at it. I've laid quite a lot of analysis. Mr. Buddy has also laid out some analysis with his staff. We're all here at the council to consider all points of view. I just wanted to mention that part of this work has been done, if not perfect.
And because you're putting this into the record, which we absolutely want to do, it's incumbent on me to point out the inconsistencies or the things that aren't, that you point out there's slight variations. There's actually more than slight variations. As I mentioned in my read comments a minute ago, per the Teller County Administrator, they no longer use a midpoint system. That the items listed in the Teller County midpoint salary are actually their beginning salaries. So it makes a big difference when you're comparing beginning to what we say is midpoint. And these aren't actually our midpoint salaries. These are the midpoints of their ranges. The vast majority of our employees haven't crossed the midpoint of the salary range. I can tell you that our Public Works Director, our Finance Director, just off the top of this list, are nowhere near the midpoint. So you're not even comparing salaries. You're comparing ranges that the city has, the midpoint that very few people are actually at, to the base salary of Teller County. But what's important is to understand that the responsibilities of the two different entities is vastly different. Our Public Works Director is a college graduate, is a licensed professional civil engineer. The Public Works Director in Teller County is not. That's their job requirement. It's a different organization, and so that's why we do the salary survey with multiple entities that are in our area and multiple entities that are like us. So I just think it's important to, as Councilman Sawyer said, let's have the facts.
Understand.
So you agree that you're not comparing apples to apples now?
Well, I'm going to make another little bit of a statement, if you wouldn't mind.
No.
So I compared an organization that operates 3 times the number of citizens and many more square miles to Woodland Park. And by the way, it's a government agency, which is Mr. Grinnan and I concur with him, is not really the appropriate thing to do, but it's what I had. These are the numbers that the Teller County Administrator gave me about a month ago, apparently updated with Mr. Buttery, better numbers or different numbers, but these are the numbers that I was given by them. So, that's the best I can do. So even at that point, those adjustments, the point is, even if they were equal, the Teller County folks are, and of course I could cherry pick various jobs also, and I understand about professional engineer, having started on that path myself. The difference in qualifications. Sometimes we overqualify people in this town too, and I'm not talking about this person, that person, in general. So if we mischaracterize and overqualify their job description, maybe somebody mows lawn for the city, and how much does a lawnmower charge? I don't know. I do know, but what I'm saying is, even if these were equal, Teller County personnel are still working with a larger area with a larger population, and that's why I tried to use that as some sort of correlation with a local government entity as opposed to one of the problems we have is that the Denver Boulder thing. I've gone through this ad nauseum. Denver and Boulder, Denver's was 3 million. I can't remember. I've got it someplace. And Boulder is whatever. Those studies, unfortunately, really skew things for this rural community, those urban communities. 2.9 million Denver, Boulder 300,000, Greeley 100,000, Teller County 24,000, Woodland Park 8,000. So Teller County comes much closer to those entities. My point being that I'm not really arguing with the city manager per se. I'm saying that even with those acknowledgments that some of these numbers come closer together, they really should be like this in the first place, and they aren't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm leaning towards moving forward. The information's on the table. I don't know that we're going to get any consensus tonight. And so if you will agree with that, we'll take any further public comment we have, and then any response, and we'll move on to the next subject, but clearly we have some work to do here. Before I go to Kelly, we'll go to Kenny and then Carol.
Just a quick thing, I think I heard things right. 2016 was 4%,
Yes, sir.
and 2017 was 1.9,
Correct.
and we're proposing 3% now.
Yes, sir.
So we're going up from last year, not down. We're not
Correct.
punishing.
Pardon me?
We're not punishing. We're trying to recoup from a tough year.
Not by
We're
much.
getting better from 1.9 to 3%.
3% is greater than 1.9.
Right. I mean, it's not all at once. We can't do it all at once, but we're making a step in the right direction. That's the point I'm making. After we've had these tremendous projects that we've completed, it's a step in the right direction. Does it solve everything? No, but it's a step in the right direction. That's my point.
Thank you, Carol.
A procedural question. Can, at any point in this discussion, either, well, we can only make a vote during a council meeting, not during a work session. In a work session, we can only make a recommendation or give guidance to the city. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're not voting on anything tonight either. You would just be coming to consensus on a direction.
How would that consensus work? If I were to say I would like to call for a consensus consideration from the council on this specific issue, could we do that in a council meeting?
Yeah, you certainly can.
Could we do that in a work session?
You can. I mean, the point is, there's no final budget decision until you hold your public hearing and you approve your ordinance.
And at the public hearing, can we, at that point, amend the proposed budget line item by line item if necessary?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kelly Case.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's good to be here this evening, staff. A couple of things before I have a...
Excuse me?
Yes. Oh, I know I have to do. Hello. I'm Kelly Case. I'm at 1210 Evergreen Heights Drive in Woodland Park. I just have to... I've been 17 years of experience as the city's former finance director and treasurer. And I just have to remind the council of a few things when you're considering items in your budget. One being the foremost thing you have to remember and should guide your decisions is the ability to pay. Never have we given raises without a clear ability to pay. And considering that that increases your base for anything you decide in future years. So keep that in mind. And something else that I think is important for the citizens.
Excuse me, Kelly, let me just go back.
Yes.
Before you move forward. Explain, we have never had any issue with our ability to pay. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
It's not correct?
No.
Okay. Help me
In my
understand.
history back in the early 2000s, when Mark Fitzgerald was our city manager, when he came on board, at that time, the city had a $400,000 unreserved fund balance, which was stronger than the position the city is seeing in recent years and continues to see. We've all had discussions about how that happened, how that occurred, and we ended there. And with that came many difficult decisions. There were 13 positions eliminated in the organization. Salaries were frozen, and any attrition was held frozen. We did not fill positions for many years and worked very diligently in cutting discretionary spending, cutting those salaries, cutting positions, not filling them. The finance department is still short 2 positions from that action. We did that with no blinders on. We did it intentionally to quickly, because the largest expense in the organization is personnel. It isn't just salaries. It's benefits, and we all know what healthcare looks like. it's the largest bang for your buck, if you will. If you are trying to cut costs and build your savings or your reserve, that's where you get the biggest impact initially. Because the base stays constant, you don't see that ratcheting effect each year when you apply a percentage to a higher base. I would suggest to you that it would behoove this council to be responsible to your citizenry. And it's not about punishment. It's not about anything other than being responsible fiscally and making the right choices to be a continuing concern, a going concern. This council's fund balance that they're dealing with is considering the revenue streams. I'm at a loss for words as to describe that. It is urgent. It is something you need to take seriously. It's not personal, it's business. And so I don't mean to lecture, I'm just trying to share what we went through already once. We did a very good job of recovering. And 4 years ago, when I presented the last financial statement to the city before I separated employment, there was almost $1.7 million. I've told you all this before. $1.7 million in unreserved, undesignated fund balance. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this. In 2 years, it was $100,000 plus some change. That is not good. And that path is continuing, and I just have to say it again. It's urgent. And I'm not looking for rebuttal. It's my opinion. And I have a statement I want to share, and then I'll sit down. I have 17 years of experience as the city's Director of Finance and Treasurer. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting and an MBA in finance from the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, 5 years as an internal auditor with the City of Colorado Springs and Colorado Springs Utilities, 4 years consulting to Swanhorst & Company, CPAs, auditing cities and school districts in Colorado, and was appointed by the Governor Bill Ritter and confirmed by the Colorado Senate to the Advisory Committee on Governmental Accounting for 2 years, a 2-year term ended May 2013. I have, too, reviewed the proposed budget and corresponding presentations and workshops, as well as Councilman Carr's studies and the recommendations he's made. And I'm relieved to hear the reluctance expressed here tonight. After a thorough review, I support Councilman Carr's approach to the budget because it reflects carefully considered reductions in spending designed to improve the city's financial position while maintaining high levels of public service. It's the right approach at this time, and I encourage the council to adopt this approach for the safety, prosperity, and general welfare of all of Woodland Park citizens. And I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council, I'll just say this. I started the work session the other day with one comment and nobody said a word. Are you comfortable with the fund balance as you see it in the budget? Nobody said anything.
I apologize for not saying anything. I'm not.
Okay, I'll give you time. The point is this. We have to decide if that's going to be the driving force, how we're going to determine the budget. Start with, what do you want our fund balance to be? And then go from there. And that just seems like the obvious approach to me. Go ahead, Joe.
Actually, Neil, Ken and I did make a comment on the fund balance and said reluctantly, we appreciated it. This was the best we could do this year until we figure out what the cost of running that aquatic center is going to be.
Right, I misspoke. Those that were not in agreement with the fund balance did not say a word, and so I assumed, I guess I shouldn't have, that they were okay with that. We're not gonna talk about that today, but I think the approach, right, we're gonna have to come up with a fund balance first. How we're gonna get to that, and then go from there. I just think that's the obvious approach. Would you agree, Val?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I have a little different approach. I've said this for over a year. I look for every savings we can find, and if the council, I'm just one person, if the council decides that some of those ideas are good and their ideas, I'm not the only one with good ideas up here, or well, that may be questionable characterization of my ideas, but I'm not the only one with ideas up here. But my approach is always, let's do the best we can and keep the service level up. And that's why I go through with my green shade, and I take that approach. It's the way I ran my business and things like that. So I understand the reserve is always a number people like to shoot at. I like to shoot at much savings as the rest of the council, representing the citizens in our oversight capacity. Would agree, because my ultimate goal is lowering their costs overall. But that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Someone would be just concerned that if the best we can do doesn't give us the fund balance that they're interested in. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, does someone else have their hand up? Whichever one would like to come. Pete, why don't you come first and give us your name and address, and we appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Pete Labar. I reside at 615 County Road, 281 in Teller County. As a business owner, and I'm glad Councilperson Harvey brought this up, as a business person who's opened new businesses, the concern is always having sufficient capital to operate that business when you stop and start. And in fact, probably the one thing that most businesses fail at is not having enough capital to operate when they first start. We just took on an aquatic center. It's a beautiful facility, and I think the city should be proud of that. I don't know, though, they should be proud of the fiscal position that they put the city in pursuing this. And you're not operating just one enterprise, you're operating a variety of enterprises, and you have responsibility across the board to make sure that the city is kept safe. The police department does that. That services are provided in a timely and safe fashion. And again, that happens. But we're only one fire away. We're only one mudslide away from the tax revenues that are generated through sales tax from being wiped out. And so, as a business person, you mitigate risk. You take out insurance policies. You do all kinds of things, and you can't plan on the unpredictable. But we know that we have fires. We know that we have floods. We know that we have a variety of different things that can happen, that do happen. I mean, my gosh, we had people get run over in New York City a couple days ago, and then we had 2 days ago. We had somebody shot up in Denver. What does it take to turn the economy around and create an environment where people don't come to Woodland Park and spend their dollars? And so when you've got an operating budget or you've got a budget of $8 million and you've got $100,000 in reserve, I would tell you you're on the brink. And I think Kelly pointed that out to you really well.
But Pete, that's not fair, because that's not what the fund balance is. So if you're going to state it is more than that. It's more than 3 times that. Okay, so at least be fair with what you're saying.
Certainly. I'll speak generally because I don't know the specifics.
Thank you.
But even at $300,000, I think that is a small amount to operate.
You have 7 people up here that absolutely agree with you, and we're working towards that end.
So when you're considering your budget, and I have to commend Val, I've seen some of his work, And he's taken a very studious approach to this. And I'm not here rallying for any one person. That's the only documentation that I've seen. I've got to say that I would beg that all of you, don't worry about whether you're getting a pay raise or not getting a pay raise, but consider the overall scope of the city operation. And I know you asked to talk about specifically pay raises. I have to agree, having run businesses here in town and continue to, that the city staff typically, in a lot of positions, are paid better than most people in the town. And so I don't have any animus for that. I think that city services, again, are great, and I'm glad that we get the services that we do. I'm happy for that, and I'm willing to pay taxes to support that. But you've made some decisions, quite frankly, that have put the city into potential jeopardy. And so, putting it off for another year and saying, well, let's do this year, take care of this thing, I think, quite honestly, I think you're imperiling the community. And so I'm begging you to take a different look and go back into your sessions and say, how do we get that balance up? How do we get those reserves up? Because if you don't, maybe some of these people aren't going to have jobs, and that's even worse. So,
Just one second before you go. I just want to get the facts straight.
Sure.
David, tell us what 2016 balance was, 17 and projected 18. Just to know, because I agree with you, but I know this for sure. We're heading in the right direction. We're better than 16, we're better than 17, and we're projected better for 18. Don't forget we got a $13 million asset on our balance sheet that we didn't have, that we didn't necessarily make all the decisions, but this community decided and voted to go into $10 million in debt. And so, you see that how you want, but there's two sides of the story.
Certainly, and I'm not blaming you for the vote of the people, but sometimes the people vote inappropriately, and we all suffer the consequences of that as well. So, and I'm not saying that's the case.
Even today, that's happened.
I'm not saying that that's the case, but in generalities.
Agreed.
And while David is looking for that, I'll just say this one more thing, is that, again, going back to that $13 million investment that you haven't proven a single cent of income. You don't know if you can support the overhead on that. You've made some assumptions, and they may well be valid. But until you prove that income, those assumptions are nothing but blue sky. So,
and you've started many businesses, and you know exactly.
I do indeed.
Right. So we're in the same boat.
David, also point out our Tabor Reserve as well.
Sure.
Not that it's all that much, but...
I don't have the 2016 audited results, I just have the budget, and because that was the year that we had the bond proceeds, the unrestricted unassigned fund balance is huge. So let me just do 2017, and if we need to, we can get the audited results. 2017's budgeted unrestricted unassigned was $250,000. We think we'll finish the year at $441,000, and we budgeted for 2018 $380,000. The Tabor Reserve in each of those years was slightly over $300,000. And we also have then the inventory and stuff like that is not liquid. So it's the combination of those two. But the unrestricted unassigned was budgeted, I'll say it again, in 2017 for $250,000. We think we'll realize $441,000, and in 2018 we're budgeting $380,000.
Still not enough, but those are the facts.
We're heading there, and we're very cognizant of where we are and where we need to be.
There's no question about the aquatic center. We don't know what that's going to look like. It may be blue sky, but it's blue sky with a whole lot of research, with a lot of different input from a bunch of different people that have done that. And we've built in a reserve in that fund as well. And there were studies done by the Woodland Aquatic Project. I won't disagree with you that we don't know exactly how that's going to turn out, but we didn't pull numbers out of the sky. We used a lot of research to determine those, but I won't argue with you. We're not going to know for a year, or 2, or 3 exactly what that's going to look like. Over that time, just like our other operations, we'll get a much better handle on that.
And David, we too have income coming in slowly but surely.
We do. Yeah, I think we're probably up to about 40,000 or 35,000, something like that, which is not what we projected in 2017, but we still got 2 months left.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Neil?
Always. Yes, sir.
I'm just sitting here just chomping at the bit, and I need to just say something about what's going on here. I think we've gone about this wrong. I feel like we've put the cart in front of the horse. Val and I have come up with, well, combined almost $1 million in savings, but all we're focused on is $100,000. The group is not hearing the savings first, and then where we want to spend the money. And I feel like the community is being misled at the moment. My 5% comes from things that I've cut to get to that 5%. And based on where I've cut stuff, we're looking at 4%. But I almost think we need to go to the places that we're cutting, how much we have savings, and then where we should put that money correctly, or at least put that money in the places it needs to be. So I'm sorry, the people are coming up here, they're saying 100,000 or 5% or whatever. You're missing a bigger picture. Val and I have looked at places to save this money and actually raise the fund balance, actually trim the staffing down. We've found all these savings, but here we're worried about $100,000 and a fund balance, which if we have the savings that Val and I have proposed, the fund balance will be $500,000. So I think we need to restart this and start looking at where the savings are first instead of focusing on compensation. Because that's why I immediately said, why are we focused on compensation? Let's look at where I started with Main Street and then go, and you can see I'm saving. I'm saving the community money. Okay, let's put this money where it needs to be. And so I think the audience has been misled here.
Well, it wasn't my intention to mislead. I'm goal-oriented, and I went with the goals first, and then figure out the hows later. So it's all covered in the document that I prepared. But I don't care where you start.
I say we start with Main Street.
That's up to the council.
Because that's where my savings start, and I don't know where Val's savings start. I mean, I have his document here, and we can, but I just think that we're worried about 100,000 and we're worried about the fund balance, but nobody's heard how much we're actually trying to save by cutting a department. We're looking at, Val and I want to dissolve a department. That's $269,000. So you're sitting here looking at us going 100,000. Well, I've got you 100,000. So I think we need to start looking at where our savings are first. And Val and I have come up with ideas. I'd like to hear the other council's ideas.
And we'll discuss those, I'm sure. Okay. We'll talk about change in direction in a second. Tanner, you've had your hand up.
Good evening, Tanner Coy, 240 East Highway 24. Thank you very much for the opportunity to weigh in here. A couple of things quickly. One, Mr. Sawyer would agree with you in sitting in the audience. I do feel somewhat misled. I don't know that it's with specific regard to what you mentioned, though. Right. It has more to do with the comments about heading in the right direction. When the 2017 unrestricted unassigned fund balance is projected at 441 and we're budgeting for 380 in 2018, that is not heading in the right direction. That's a reduction of 61, which, I mean, if you call that the right direction, we have very different goals.
Call it apples to apples, Tanner. The projected was 250. We ended with 441. Okay.
And why are we budgeting for 380?
We're budgeting 380 for next year. And the number that we end up with will be the number to compare to 441. David?
Well, I understand the comment. We always do our best to budget it extremely conservatively, so we budget revenues well below what historically we have realized, and we budget expenses higher than they are. It addresses Mr. LeBar's concern. Make sure you have the capital to pay your bills. I believe in this budget, Mike, help me, we had a 3% increase in sales tax revenue. 3.5%. We're currently realizing 5.3% over. So we want to be conservative with that. So it's my expectation that at the end of 2018, our fund balance will be far exceeding the 379 that we're budgeting at this point.
That's my hope. I would not call it my expectation, and it is not reflected in the budget. We are planning, with the budget, a loss of $61,000 from the unrestricted unassigned fund balance. I don't know that we can call it heading in the right direction until we find ourselves ending up there. In any event, I'd also like to say that when faced with very difficult decisions about how to make rapid improvement in what was a precariously positioned public body, the first thing the Development Authority did was cut payroll to zero. First thing. And then took additional steps. I could reiterate in detail the many steps required to change that authority's course from a trajectory of increasing debt, increasing contractual obligations, and blind faith in the leadership that got it there. That would be a painful story, and I'll spare you.
Thanks.
However, I will say, as that authority faced, so too our city is at a distinct fork in the road. At this fork, like always, left is to increase spending and grow the government. Right is save money and reduce risk to our community and its citizens. Left is to reduce the fund balance through deficit spending after years of deficit spending. Right is recovery and restoration of financial strength. Please don't lead us farther down the left. We've been down this path long enough and are nearly out of money. It's time for a right turn. Please. Grab the wheel and do it. We'll support you.
Thank you.
Supposed to be clever.
Okay, relative to what Noel said, council, which way do you want to approach this? Want to approach it from the surplus side? What would you like to do? Because we're going to have to discuss regardless. Both sides.
Let's do this. I'd like to start with my recommendations and go over my recommendations in the order that I recommended them, because the order was to save, take that money, and then put it where it needed to be. And based on my recommendations, we would probably have almost, if I look at the police operations differently and use their overtime money to pay for the extra officers, then our fund balance would probably be almost closer to 500.
Okay, that said, David, are you prepared to respond?
Sure.
Main Street.
You mean Main Street?
Main Street.
Okay.
I'm sorry, give me the page. So
I'm sorry, page 6 on the staff's response.
Great, thank you.
So Main Street, Councilmember Sawyer recommends eliminating Main Street expenditures from the 2018 budget for a total savings of $52,000 and move $12,000 of those savings to the Community Investment Fund, increasing it to $37,000. I think actually we increased it to $32,000. Perhaps I had a typo.
Yeah, you have a typo.
One of us did.
I'm looking at mine. I don't. Whatever.
It's staff comments. The program, meaning Main Street, is near receiving full Main Street designation, which presents additional potential grant funding. I believe the city and Main Street both desire for Main Street to be autonomous. I don't know if Main Street can survive in the short term, 2 to 3 years, without some form of city support. The 2018 proposed budget amount for the part-time Main Street coordinator position is $32,400, including salary and taxes, for a total of $54,400 in the 2018 proposed budget for Main Street. Staff recommendation: this is a council decision which should take into consideration the potential benefits of the program. For example, designation and grant funding, and the amount of support the council is willing to provide. The Main Street Board should present a funding request to the council.
Is that going to happen this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I believe the next Main Street meeting is Tuesday, November 7th. I believe at that meeting they're going to discuss the possibility of making a presentation to the council.
Okay, I'd say that we table it until then.
17th? 16th.
The 16th, yes, sir.
I'd like to add just to that, that I'm not saying not fund completely, because they are a 501c. They can come to the Community Investment Board and request money through the Community Investment Fund. So we're not eliminating them from giving any money. They just have to prove they need it. And I don't believe they're fully becoming, I do understand they're there, but I don't think they need our financial support to get there.
No, I got a question for you. It
Sure.
makes sense to me. How about we just take 12,000, instead of putting in community investment, give that to Main Street next year? That still saves 37,000. It gives Main Street a little bit of juice. I'm concerned, as you well know, about Main Street. And one question I would have, I know that we're close to Main Street designation, which presents additional grant funding, but from my understanding, the additional grant funding is somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 5,000 to 10,000 more. Is that right, or is that wrong? Am I missing somewhere? How much? 2,500 more for the extra designation. So it's not like they're going to receive an extra $25,000 or $50,000 to move forward. And so, I don't know, I think
What
that's
I'm unclear of is, and I looked at their budget, and I look at the DDA budget, they're similar. Why do they need expenditures when the DDA is doing just fine with no help from the city?
because the
They get
DDA is
TIF.
clear.
They get TIF.
Well, they get grants. They just let go of their grant writer.
Right. And they have
So
the big thing is they
they've
have
created their
unpaid
own
staff.
problem. So
Yeah.
why are we trying to help there? They created their own problem. Why are we giving them money? Let them go figure out their own problem.
I don't disagree with you, Noel, but I would like to give them the opportunity to make that presentation.
No, that's
agree.
commendable. I agree with
I
that.
agree. So that said, Main Street, that's what you're gonna be up against. And so I've said it along the way, and I would just love to see, if you're gonna get me on your side, at least, a vision and how we're gonna get there. And for the last couple of years, I just haven't seen it. So keep that in mind. I had that conversation with a couple of people and look forward to the 16th. But clearly, there's a number of us that are leaning in another direction. Have I misspoke anywhere there?
I truly think we should just cut the financial ties.
I get it. And we'll make that decision. We're just not going to make it today. But let's
Agreed.
get everyone's thoughts on the record at least. Paul?
I wrote it down. Main Street. I support that it be eliminated, and I'll stop right there. But
Support that eliminated.
I do hear what you're saying, and every bit of information that comes across to my eardrums ain't just passing through out the other side.
Good. I hope we're all in the same boat there.
Let's hear the presentation, and then we can make a decision.
Good idea. Let's move forward, special projects. David?
Thank you. Councilmember Sawyer recommends that this department be dissolved for a savings of $229,000. I don't want to misrepresent your words. I concluded that from the second page where it says full department savings, 229,000.
Right, because the reason I did is I took visitor center and I suggested we move it to general support.
Okay.
That's why it's a reduced amount.
Understand. So then let's make sure we're not double counting the money by eliminating.
It's probably not
special-
exact, but it's close enough.
It is. The 271 minus the 42 is that number that you said.
Okay.
But there's also.
My calculator works.
Pardon me?
My calculator works.
Yeah, there's also the Main Street budget is part of that as well, and so that 229 includes the Main Street things also.
Correct. And that's why I wanted to build on.
Sure. Separate from Main Street. So this, my comments, the staff comments, only apply to special projects without Main Street. Please hear me on that. The staff states that this entity provides great service to the council and the community, much of which is behind the scenes. The director has come before council very frequently to speak of things that the department has been responsible for and has been successful in completing. I provide to council a page and a half of accomplishments in 2017. You have those in front of you. I will not read those into the record. It's part of my packet to you. One of the comments that was made that special projects, the marketing was done by the chamber. The chamber president is here. She made her presentation tonight. She talked about the marketing that they do. The chamber and special projects work together and have very different market strategies and very different market targets. And so special projects has a completely different marketing program than the chamber. We've worked in concert with the chamber for years to make sure we hit all the correct markets. The ordinance establishing the lodging tax was modified from just expenses associated with beautification of downtown to beautification and marketing. We have a revenue stream for the marketing that we do. Could all the tasks assigned to special projects be accomplished in other ways? Perhaps, but not likely. Each of the entities mentioned by Councilmember Sawyer, planning, I think the chamber, the city manager, and so on, already have full and active daily and nightly schedules. There just isn't the capacity in those entities to do all of those tasks and do them well. As to volunteers doing this work, the city is blessed with 80-plus volunteers on boards, committees, commissions, and councils. We couldn't do what we do without them. If volunteers do the tasks that Special Project does now, who manages the volunteers? And then I provide a page and a half of 2018, actually 2.5 pages, 2018 goals and actions, and that office has already identified. The task, one of the things Councilmember Sawyer said was, let's move that department or that person underneath the city manager's office. Regardless of where it's located, the tasks will be the same. So the task list absolutely would be the same if that position was a special assistant to the city manager. The staff's recommendation is keep the proposed budget amounts for everything else. Decide what you want to do with the Main Street. But that function is very important to the vitality of the city.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and do a rebuttal to that. I did read through all of those. That is a lot of stuff. There's a few things I disagree with. In fact, most of them I feel that it was a combined effort with other entities, individuals. It wasn't all the director of special projects doing all of those things. I don't want to go through that. Maybe you and I, David, could go through that personally, one-on-one. Thinking about this and stepping back, I do believe that, yes, there's two options for me here. Moving this position to under the city manager, and I had a name for it, Special Assistant Media Coordinator to the city manager, and I recommend that this be a part-time position. That's a savings right there of $70,000. Well, probably less, probably $60,000. The other option was to create an advertising media committee. and give that committee a budget of, say, $20,000 to do, and that would be volunteers, give them a budget where they can go and do all of those things that is currently going on in the special projects, and that would even save us $80,000. So there are savings here, and there are ideas, but I wish we would start thinking out of the box and start looking at things that we haven't thought about in years. And there are plenty of places in the budget to do that. And this is one. And it's not a personal thing. Kind of like Kelly said, it's not personal. It's just, we're looking for savings, we're looking for efficiencies, we're trying to streamline. We do want to get our reserve up. We do not know what the aquatic center cost is truly going to be, and we've had, and I'd just like the audience to know that the council's had that discussion. We've had that discussion one-on-one that we really truly don't know, and we need at least a 5-year cycle to truly know what our costs are on the aquatic center. So I think my proposal with special projects is very valid here. It's not a need, it's a want. And I've given you an option to keep it, just at a lower cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Since I did all this work and writing, I'm going to read my position. Special projects. I support Councilman Sawyer and Carr's position to eliminate this department until I hear the information and the facts, and Mr. Buttery has sent out, and I have read that. I stand on my position here. I would like to hear the information from the other people, and from there muddle it over, and my position may change a little. This is what I wrote. This is what I'm standing by.
So based on what you see in front of you that Special Projects has achieved this year, you don't think that has any value at all, is what you're telling me? Or you think somebody else could do it better, or we could do it with volunteers? I'm trying to understand, if we eliminate it like you're asking for, how are we going to achieve those goals, or are those goals even anything we need to consider? Understand my question?
Oh, I understand your question, and I understand what I read, and I understand the city's staff position now. But it is a position that requires a lot of money for, I believe, little return. That's my position.
Understand.
I've attended the Main Street, which have been taken over by special projects and other meetings, to try to get an understanding and get my hand around it. I don't see the great value as you do. Convince me that this is the value that I'm receiving.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Well,
Somebody said I did.
Oh, okay,
You
I'm
said I
sorry.
did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
I'm
you see
asking
great
this.
value.
Noel said that possibly a part-time person would fill the bill. I'm asking you, would you support that, or you think Special Projects needs to go away altogether?
And Paul, that includes visitor center.
I could support a position like that, as I've heard it tonight. But what I wrote in my surveying and reading and doing, I read a whole book in 2 days. I'm stating my statement as I wrote it, and I'm listening. Woodland Park, I'm listening. I believe there could be some validity to a part-time position. I do not want to kill the city, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the water. I just want to get a clearer understanding and be able to make a decision based on the information that I gather. I am on an information mission right now. That's where I stand.
Paul, what did you think of Noel's suggestion that we not fund the visitor center?
No, I
I
want to
don't think
fund
he
the
said
visitor
that.
center. I suggested I move it over to general support. I believe the visitor center is doing a lot of what
Special Projects is doing. I truly believe that. As much as the city manager tells me there's a difference, I don't see the difference. And but I still believe there is some validity to the position, and that's why I suggest we can do a part-time. I think that's a valid middle ground. But right now, I don't believe what goes on in that and what is done in that department doesn't justify a department.
And to answer your question directed at me, in reading over Councilman Sawyer's notes and Councilman Carr's notes that they presented, Sawyer's was a bit of an onion to peel back and understand the direction that he was trying to go. And I do support removing that from Special Projects. I support the Visitor Center in that regards. So I hope that answers your question. And I'm not trying to create calamity here. I'm just trying to put my ideas out that I worked so hard to formulate. That's all.
You did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
We're at a place right now, I think it's a good time to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 9:30.
Okay, thank you very much.
Shoot.
to short yourself
Just
out.
knew that was going to
Why don't you give him the whole box? Oh, would you spill? Hard
Hey,
to believe
Val.
you spilled.
Yeah, isn't it hard to believe?
Are you raining on our parade?
Yeah,
Huh,
I'm
Val?
trying to. Thank
That
you,
what you're
Carol.
doing?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. I hope that helped. Certainly helped us. Right, Ken? Okay, we're going to move on to Councilman Carr's suggestions, and the city manager will lead this discussion. We're going to start with the same side as we did with Mr. Sawyer.
Do we want to go to, I only have one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
really.
I thought we finished. My
Well,
bad. Go ahead.
What was the next on the agenda? You're right, I did need a break.
Police department?
Was it police or, I guess we went to compensation, but we've had that discussion.
Let's go to security and then police.
Right, let's go to security. That was more of a suggestion.
But that's
I think it's going to be something that when you hire the IT analyst, he's going to recommend that, or she's going to recommend that. I think what you mentioned in your notes, that's great, but I'd like to have a face to that person that causes the problem. So a camera. I thought we were going to put a camera in above the entrance over here.
Hold on one second. No, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Because you wanted to approach it from the different side. Why don't we come back to the wants after, go to Val's suggestions, and then we'll come back to everybody's wants. Does that make
You
sense?
are absolutely right.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry I got off course. Val, you're next.
With what?
Or, no, David will answer Val's. Okay, and tell me what page we're on.
Well, Mayor,
I'll tell you.
on Main Street, I think, our special projects.
Let me find.
Yeah, we were coming around to special projects. We just, so I don't know if there was
I gotta
a.
find my results. Okay, I found it.
I haven't addressed special projects yet, so I don't know.
I think, Mayor, that's where we left off.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
good.
that's.
Perfect.
I guess all I would say on some of these things, just my perspective is that we're delving in a little deep into something that I think most of us, in this case, special projects, all this page and a half of projects are things that they do. Staff has recommended that it's valid and that they need them. I trust staff. I have no reason not to. If these are things we need, these people know what these things are doing for our city. I don't know how any of us can state that we know what each of these things do and if they're worth it or not.
And
I have no reason not to trust staff's opinion, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's the problem I have with it.
And I have a rebuttal to that statement.
Okay.
In fact, why don't I read my opening statement, because it does address that. We have a great staff. In fact, let me read my opening statement that I was going to make. Did you take that piece of paper? Here it is. Well, it's pleasantries. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Showing your commitment to the fiscal responsibility of the community. We are here to continue discussing the citizens' budget of Woodland Park. As an elected representative of the community, I feel it is my responsibility to take an active role in making sure the budget represents the will of the people. And Val brought that up. The people of this community are the ones paying the bills. So they should have a representative council. It's the duty of the city manager to prepare and submit the budget to the representative council. It is the duties of the council to make unbiased recommendations and pinpoint critical financial issues that need to be addressed. Thank you, Mr. Buttery and staff, for responding so quickly to my recommendations. I have some concerns about the process in which the recommendations and comments are processed. When asking staff, and this comes to your point, when asking staff to review the recommendations by council, they are in a bias position. Some of the whats might affect their job, so the effort to place the how is limited. I carefully reviewed each response to my recommendations, and with certain staff comments, I'm not reading any alternate proposals, solutions, or middle ground. This process is flawed. There needs to be an unbiased approach to the budget review process. So that goes back to your comment that yes, there's all this stuff of everything they do, but you've asked someone to save their job. You say, well, I want to cut 20%. I would like you to cut 20% from this department. Go find those cuts. You think they're really going to try hard to find those cuts? It's bias immediately. So as a council, we are unbiased. We see the picture outside of the frame. We're not in the picture. So we can see little issues that need to be addressed. And so I understand where you're coming from, Ken, but I believe we can be unbiased and look for ways to represent the community. And we are a representative council. So thank you. Thank you.
So how does that address knowing all these individual tasks?
I went through every individual task, and if you want to go down that path, I can go down that path, because majority of them were done by other individuals, committees, groups, departments. In fact, I was part of some of those, and I can put that in my resume too, that I was a participant. But so all that stuff is great, but I think that's a part-time job, or that can be done by volunteers.
And no, part of what you said I just don't agree with, and that's that the process is flawed. I think the process is good because what we discuss here today, we can bring to the city manager and say, this is where we'd like to make some changes, and then come back with that and go from there. So we're gonna get to the point where we want to be at some point. It's clear now that some of us want to make some changes with special projects, with Main Street.
Correct.
The city manager hears that, and you know what? We're just going to have to continue the process, just like you said. He answered your questions well. You thought they were a little slanted, and that's fine, understandable. Let's continue to work. Tell the city manager what we'd like to change, and go from there. That's the process in my mind.
Right, but it's hard for, and I understand the bias, and yes, if I was running a department and I was asked to slash 20% and I went, I can't find 20%. I mean, that's what I would say immediately. I can't find 20% to slash. So right there, because it affects the job or the people within that department, they're very limited on how they won't make the big effort to find that 20%.
They don't have any choice.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that.
Well, I know that last year we asked David to take the budget back and look at areas that could be cut
Yeah,
at his discretion.
I didn't go to CML.
Oh, there was more than that. Than he cut.
I know,
You
I understand that, but my point
Yeah.
is I was part of that cut too. So
So
I took
what I'm
mine.
saying is to simply say, cut this specific position, because that's your estimate of where the fat is like, you're dictating to him to do exactly what you're saying not to do. If you want to give him a goal of, David, I don't think $350,000 is the right reserve. Please find $100,000 and let him come back to us and tell us what that is. That's the approach we took last year.
And that's incorrect, because I'm seeing it from an unbiased. I'm not biased to it. It's their job. They're biased. They're protecting their
You've got
job.
a built-in bias because you've specifically chosen a position
Right.
to
I think
cut.
it's a need and not a want.
In your opinion, in your biased
Okay, well, that's why we have
opinion.
7 people here to have that opinion. That's correct. So, but that's, looking at it unbiasedly, that's where I see the best place to save money at this time.
You've made a recommendation.
That's correct. I have made a recommendation. That is absolutely correct. I have made a recommendation, and
And
I'd
your-
like to see if the other council members are willing to go along with that
And then your
recommendation.
next step is to say, not only do I want you to cut this position, I want you to transfer the money to this area.
A suggestion.
Hmm?
Well, I don't, it doesn't matter where he sends the money to, but it's
No,
a
you-
suggestion.
You've identified areas that you want him to move that money to.
Okay.
Right or wrong?
And your point is?
Nothing.
Am I not allowed to do that?
Absolutely, you can do anything you want sitting
Okay.
from where you
Am I
are
being
sitting.
punished right now? I feel like I'm being lectured.
I'm not lecturing him, I'm just saying, we approached it last year by saying, can you come up with some cuts at your discretion?
Right, and we should have been more aggressive, and we were not. So this year, I think we need to step back and be more of a representative council and represent the money of the people.
However, you want to move money to projects that are important to you. Not that they're inappropriate, but to say, cut this position because I think it's useless, but I want you to purchase security cameras here because I think that's the most important thing.
And it is the safety and security of our community. That is way more important to me than advertising Woodland Park at the moment. Yes, and you are part of security, so you should know that should be a priority to this city.
I'll go back to our 19 April goals and objectives meeting. Nowhere did that come up except from you. We talked about
Wow,
safety and
go figure.
security, but the only individual that said we need security cameras was one council member.
Wow, I must be a genius because we need safety and security of this community. We are behind the curve. We seem to always be behind the curve. We're behind the curve with salaries. We're behind the curve with technology. We're behind the curve with a lot of things. Why is that? Why can't we get ahead of the curve once in a while?
And someday, when
We will.
Mr.
What-
Buttery retires, you can apply for his position.
Sure.
One of the things that council asked us to do on Monday night was to provide comments.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
And we should continue with those comments. I'm kind of lost where we're at, honestly. Paul,
Ken,
you wanna set me straight?
Ken, we were talking about special projects and the validity of it.
Okay.
We were talking about Main Street special projects. Mine doesn't exactly fit into perfect categories, unfortunately. And once again, remember, this document that I've put is suggestions on where we can find money. It's not, thou shalt do this or else. It's kind of, these are, hey, here's some ideas. And so it's hard for me to say, so yeah, I say, yeah, let's get rid of special projects. Let's move this over there. Let's move that. These are all possibilities. As a consensus, as a council, we'll have to come to consensus with the city manager on possibilities and implementation. We'll come up with general guidelines, just like we did last year. And once again, sorry, I keep saying that. I shouldn't be doing. It's hard for me to really fit these pigeonholes because mine's sort of spread out. So I would offer that maybe I don't know, David, what do you think? I know you have comments there.
Well, your presentation did go topic by topic, and so what I tried to do was blend, answer Councilman Sawyer's talk about those, and then I tried to do the same thing with yours. I didn't go in the exact same order you did, because I thought we could do things topically. So, I did have some recommendations on yours, but they were basically the same as what I provided for Councilman Sawyer.
Let me just make one comment. Having this big, huge list we have, which is quite extensive. The only comment I'll make is quite a bit of it is actually done by Main Street, and of course, our current director of special projects participates extensively in these things. So, but they are sort of the Main Street mission. So, there is some of that going on in here.
Could you clarify which of those?
Well, I did,
things-
I went through and scanned it. I didn't check them off, unfortunately. I'd be happy to do that later.
I'd like for you to do it now, because I think it's germane to the conversation. If we're talking about the 2017 accomplishments, which of those are Main Street?
Or what page are we on here?
It's page 5 of your, what I call Councilmember Carr's 2018 budget recommendations, part 1. The same list is on Councilmember Sawyer's on page 7. So either one, they're the same list.
Yeah, so there, this goes page 5, page 6, and then starts again on goals for 7, page 7, 8, and 9.
If just the one for 2017 would be helpful.
I can help out, Val, if you need to.
So review of downtown sign, that's one. Coordinated walkability, that's another one.
Val, do me a favor, speak to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on page 6, review of downtown signs, coordinated walkability, and these are not perfect, there's overlap here.
Correct.
So this one's village above the clouds. Obviously, there's some interest in the broadband, not necessarily Main Street, but and then obviously the Main Street participation, coordinating groundbreaking ceremony. Okay. A lot of this is event stuff.
Right. So it sounds like you've named 3 things that Main Street was participating in.
I've got 6 check marks. Mine mostly had to do with the 2018 stuff, but regardless, there are some things at Main Street. And I was making a big point of it, just that's some of
I think
what.
there's some overlap there.
Yeah, yeah.
I can add to that, Val.
Sure.
I went through the list myself, and I came up with everything overlapping. Do you want me to go through the list?
I won't argue that there's a lot of overlap, but the point is that that's why we have that person, is to help us with that coordination of the overlap.
Right.
And so that's what it does, whether it's part-time or full-time, that's what y'all will wrestle with.
And I'm not arguing with the validity of the position. I've heard statements from some staff members that it helps out, it helps them, but I don't see it as a department, and I don't see it as a full-time.
Forget about it being a department.
Okay.
You know, I've talked about how we could rectify that. I need the function.
Agreed.
The city needs the function.
So let's, and I will recommend, which it sounds like I'll get in trouble for, but I recommend that be a part-time position.
Dave, let me ask you this.
That's what I've noted.
If there was no overlap, would we need somebody to lead?
Absolutely.
We still would,
Yeah.
even if there's no overlap.
Yeah, that was kind of my point, is that there's a zillion things that position does that other people, at least within my organization, don't have the bandwidth to do.
All right, so I'm going to ask a very valid question. What did we do before special projects?
Well, we had a person in that department who is no longer with the city because the salary, the budget was cut last year on many different things, and she said rather than try to get by on 20 hours a week and get a lot of things done, I'll walk away so that money can be used for other things. So that person did a lot of those things. So did the director of economic development.
Well, I'll disagree with that statement, but I'll disagree with that last statement, but the individual that was part-time did an amazing job. So I think that goes back to, I truly believe that this can be done with part-time.
Well, she was full-time. I beg your pardon. She was full-time. She was part-time when she started years ago, but she was full-time when she left. And she did some of these things part-time. She worked in economic development,
Right.
she worked at the DDA, she did a lot of other things. But that's the person who did the vast majority of these things. I was acting as the public information officer. Now, Special Projects does that. I did a lot of working with individual staff members on groundbreakings and coordination of events. This
Right,
person
and-
does this.
And then that brings back to a lot of this overlapping stuff was your prior duties. That's correct, yes.
Not a lot. I did not say that.
You are an amazing, you've done a lot, so. I know. I'm done with the statement.
Could I argue that since the pool's done and the park's done, that the city manager would have more time to do some things he did before that? Does that make any sense?
Particularly with the Aquatic Center, because we were transitioning through finance directors and public works directors, and there was a lot of that I was directly involved with that would have been done by other department heads, except I was the continuity over a lot of different years. But at the marketing stuff, not my skill set. And some of the CDOT stuff, Ben's on board now, so he might be able to do some of that, but it's the bridging of projects. I use the Safe Routes to School, where it's a park and rec issue, it's a planning issue, it's a public works issue, but Special Projects was the umbrella that pulled everybody together and then did the coordination for the grant funding.
There's one area that I don't think there's any overlap with any other position or with any of the volunteer groups, and that's public information officer.
Right.
Fortunately, we don't always need a public information officer, but when we do, it's to our benefit as a community to have one that's trained and ready to have that face of the community. You did a tremendous job during the Waldo Canyon fire, but you had other things to do, and if we'd had an identified public information officer, that would have been a load taken off of your plate.
True.
Just one last statement, and you, Dave, you and I have had this conversation in private about the responsibilities of the mayor. Sorry, I'm going to bring you into this. I always felt that the mayor should have more responsibilities with dealing with the public and dealing with the media. And so when I had my list of overlapping, I actually have you in here for a few things, Neil. So I believe as a mayor, you can step up a few responsibilities and be that public person for the media, and you're already there for events, so I can't argue that, and you're doing.
But a public information officer is a very specific duty under the incident command system, and it's key for disaster response. Asking the mayor to do it is not appropriate. The city manager has done it before, but it is important to have a designated PIO.
Okay, so you're okay with this department?
I am okay with this department.
Okay, well then, it's a moot point.
And I'm biased. I think it's an important department,
Fair enough.
an important function. I don't care if it's a department.
Okay, well, is it a need or a want?
It is a need.
Okay, well, I disagree with that. I think it's a want at the time, and all these functions were done prior with part-time. And
Several
Dave
part-time. Several part-time.
Well, it doesn't all have to be done. This whole list does not have to be done. Just a few things. Okay, and a part-time person can do that until we get our reserve up. Maybe in a year or two, we get our reserve, then we make it a full-time position. Better option. So it's not final that this person is part-time, because next year or 2 years, they can be a full-time. We're trying to save money here.
And Noel, to what you said, I don't know what's appropriate. I don't. I think everybody knows this. You tell me what to do, ask me what to do, and I'll do it. And certainly, if we can save some money along the way, and I can help in that regard, I will. That may or may not be the mayor's responsibility, but and I'm not sure what that is sometimes. But you know, you all know that I'll do.
You are the face of this community.
I'll do
just let you know.
whatever it takes.
Okay.
That's within reason. Val?
Thank you. We're running out of time, so with apologies, if you would permit, I would like this whole document on a city council meeting per record. I'm just going to read the synopsis I have with all the other categories, because we're never going to get to any other categories at this point. And then just put it in the record.
You still need to read it?
Just the one page.
Go ahead.
So employee compensation was number one. This is on the second page behind the title page. And like I say, these are all suggestions for council to consider. My stance, we already heard, give 1% raise package for merit and lower range employees. IT department fund a half-time IT person, evaluate further after July 1st, 2018. Police department, unfreeze one police slot and compensate with reduction in overtime as close to 100% offset in net expenditure. Raise lowest rates to $45K and shift mids with a 1% package. Seek SRO help from Teller County Sheriff as possible. Broadband, allocate $40,000 to a vision study expenditure with 3+ bidders for the final winning proposal. 5, vehicle usage study, full implementation of the VURC recommendations. 6, cultural center, reduce the halftime slotted personnel and supplement with existing contracts in parks, buildings, and ground personnel. 7, chamber pays $15,000 rent, and the visitor stipend is transferred to Main Street Events and Convention Committee, TBA, along with city building, the former EDD cabin via IGA or similar. The NT bill to generation, add $10,000 in anticipated revenue from grant seeking. Street projects, number 9, I can't support this ditch budget line item doing only the South Park Street portion without the north ditches being addressed first. If not, it should be removed until such time as the North Park Street ditches are improved. Incorporate the ditch improvements to Park Street north of Highway 24, and I'm good as long as the budget stays about the same. 10, parks, buildings, and grounds, delete funds for all overtime, $15,500. 11, street operations, convert 1 to 3 full-time positions to part-time seasonal workers for an estimated 10 to 20% savings of the proposed salaries and benefits budget of $371,800, which translates to another savings of $37,000 to $74,000. Special projects, remove the department and personnel under it per no suggestion. Move Main Street funding to CIF and chamber budget to Main Street. Bottom line, all those, in my estimation, there's a possible $680,000 to $1.3 million savings with a couple of expenditures. Thank you for letting me read it into the record. I'll put the whole thing in the record if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
And council, I did, we worked on the staff comments back to you, and I finished the draft on the residuals. You don't have that yet. That's part 2. You do have Councilmember Carr's responses, part 1. So all the ones that we haven't covered on this sheet tonight, I've just finished that this afternoon, and I'll get that out to you in the next day or so.
Thank
so
you.
We're prepared for the next work session, which if we could, we can, I've heard from most everyone, so I need to talk to Councilmember Saunier about a date, and then we'll get that out to the community for the next work session.
And I appreciate that. I saw some of the responses, and some of them were only available 15th, 16th, I think. Am I wrong on that?
It was the
point is, we got a lot of work, and we got to the 16th. We're going to suspend this conversation for our next work session, but I got a feeling we're going to need 2 work sessions, possibly before our next council meeting 2 weeks from today. I'm going to ask the city manager to take some of these things that you've heard today into consideration and do with your staff the best you can and come back to us. There's clearly no unanimous agreement on anything, and so that's a little bit difficult, I'm sure. I think everybody would agree, sharpen the pencil, see what we can do, see what makes sense on the city side, biased or not, come back with us. I think everyone would also agree there's going to be some give and take here. We're going to have a budget, and I know clear heads will prevail. I know where we want to go. I think the city manager knows where we want to go, and we just, again, hard work ahead. Love the approach tonight. Everybody that spoke from the audience, well spoken, and we're all passionate. No one wants more money in the bank than I do. Nobody, we kind of all want a lot of the same things. Some things are a little bit easier than others, but you've got the expertise. Come back to us, and we'll go from there. Before we leave here, though, right now, I want to know when our next work session can be.
Mayor, after polling the council, Councilmember Sonier didn't have a chance to respond, but 5 council members and Councilman Member Schaefer hasn't responded either, but we understand why. He hopes to be here on the 16th, so right now, the 14th and the 15th have all 5 that have responded available. So Paul, if we can speak to you afterwards, or make sure you can check your calendar now, but the 3rd, the 6th, and the 8th, people were going to be absent. So the 14th and the 15th, we can schedule both of those nights if the council would like to.
I can do the 14th, but I cannot do the 16th.
Okay. Well, at
And I
least
could
let's
do every
schedule
day
then.
if they
16th
want.
will be here.
I don't know if I'll be here.
On the 16th?
On the 16th?
I gotta check my calendar. I really do. Let me check my calendar and get back
If
to you.
council would pencil in tentatively Tuesday, November 14th at 6 o'clock, then we'll,
I
if you
will
could
definitely
confirm.
confirm with you tomorrow. I will not let this go on.
Thank you.
I'll send a response back.
And hopefully, and I did include Councilmember Schaefer in the dialogue on the dates. He's just not responded yet. That's not surprising.
And I know what you all responded. Is there any way we can go the 6th or the 8th next week and everybody revisit their
I can
calendar?
go that day.
I'd love to be able to have a meeting next week on the 6th or the 8th. Can you please look at that and respond to David in the morning? That would really be beneficial for all of us, I think. Then we can come back on the 14th or whatever. I really don't believe we're going to get this finished in one more work session. And if anyone, let's do your best. If we can't do it, we can't. Let's try for the 6th or the 8th next week, and we'll go from there. And please, everybody respond to Mr. Buttery by tomorrow morning so we can etch that in stone before the weekend.
I would throw, part of the problem for me is the time. If we can adjust the time, I mean, I'm available weekends even, I don't care. I guess we have to pay overtime at that point, but.
To us, we get paid overtime.
Yeah, we get paid.
Twice.
Part of my problem is the time.
Okay.
I've got hard
Then when you
commitments.
respond with the time that you could possibly, and I'm hoping that between the 6, 7, 8 of us, we can make it work.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, that's it. Thank you for your discussion, folks. We're gonna move on as soon as I find my agenda.
Here's this one.
I got it. Thank you very much. Okay. We move to Mike Farina and ordinances on initial posting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item is the supplemental appropriation. Correct. So this is our second supplemental appropriation of the year. We did one, I don't know, a month or so ago. And this one here is to just make some adjustments to the budget, to the 2017 budget. Overall, it's over several funds, but it's budget neutral. So meaning where there's increases, there's also increases in revenue. So I'll just highlight the appropriation. I'll present in more detail at the second reading and public hearing. The first one is moving Parks and Recreation, Cultural Center, Aquatic Center operations to a newly created Culture and Recreation Fund. So we got to move budget out of the general fund into this soon-to-be created Culture and Recreation Fund. The supplemental appropriation also moves the debt service for the 2015 COPs, or certificates of participation, and the 2015 general fund bonds out of the debt service funds into the general fund. And that was at a recommendation of the city auditor during their audit, and I agree with that. Another part is to move the North Teller Build-A-Generation program from the grants fund to the general fund. Another revision is to increase the revenue and the subsequent expenditure of the sales tax that is for the school district based on our year-end projections. Also, increasing the fleet maintenance budget based on an increase in estimated year-end projections, which are the result of unanticipated repairs to vehicles. Again, as I said, for the increases in expenditures, there's also an offset in revenue. In this case, it's sales of fixed assets, or vehicles, I should say, and insurance proceeds offsets this, and even more than what the increase, the projected amount is. Also, increase the general fund support of Victim Assistance Law Enforcement Grant Program due to increase in personnel costs. That is due to the retirement of the victim advocate, the hiring of the new one. There is some salary savings there. However, we had to pay out the compensated leave that the employee earned, and that caused an actual increase to the salary line. And then there was some training overlap as well. Increase the revenue and expenditures of the grants fund based on year-end projections of grant-related enforcement overtime. Under the high visibility enforcement grant and law enforcement assistance fund grant, conservatively, we budgeted 0 because we weren't sure, what grants we were going to be able to get, how much overtime we were going to work under these grants. So now we're increasing the budget based on our projections at year-end to $23,000, and it's completely revenue-based or supported. Then for the Downtown Development Authority Fund, increasing the legal fee expenditures. But that increased expenditure is also offset by anticipated or increased revenue projections. So that is all of the adjustments for this appropriation. Again, it's budget neutral. Where we're increasing expenditures, there's also an increase in revenue.
Mike, as long as we're doing this, why don't you go through ordinance 1315 and we'll ask questions on both.
This is first posting.
First posting, yeah. You want to just go through ordinance 1315 real quick?
Okay. On initial posting, council is required to, whenever there's a new fund established, council is required to adopt or create that fund through an ordinance. So that's why this is here before you tonight. So this ordinance will establish a new special revenue fund to account for the expenditures and revenues for culture, parks, and recreation services provided by the city. That would be the cultural center, the parks and recreation, which are the recreation programs, and then the new aquatic center. So this idea was introduced at the first council workshop, and it sounded like it was favorable. It creates accountability and transparency. So the recommendation is to go ahead and create this new fund to separate out those expenditures and revenues.
And it also gives us a better idea, right, of pool expenditures, and we got that broken out.
Correct.
That was one of the reasons.
And it also, I'll add, it also gives a better idea as to how much the general fund actually supports those functions.
We all want to hear what that number is. Okay, on initial posting, so there won't be much Q&A. Do you have anything we need to chat with about today? If not, call for a motion to consider, start with ordinance 1314 on initial posting.
Motion to consider ordinance 1314 as posted.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Same thing for ordinance 1315, please.
Motion to consider ordinance 1315 as posted.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Move on to new business, and Mike Brady.
Okay, this is the resolution, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have the agenda. So this is a resolution levying general property taxes for the year of 2017 for the 2018 budget year. It's something that we are required to do by city charter, to adopt by resolution the mill levies and then have it certified to the Teller County Commissioners by their due date, and their due date is December 15th. The city's mill levy rate is 16.249 mills, remaining unchanged since 1991. The preliminary assessed valuation within the city upon which these mills would be applied is $104,496,268, and the resulting property tax generated for the 2018 budget is $1,698,000. Any questions?
Sounds good. Appreciate it. If there's not any questions, we need a, go ahead, Val.
As everybody read my packet, in a mission to reduce the mill rate eventually, so I'm going to propose to council that we reduce this to 16.0 and put that on the table for council to consider. Saving property taxes for the citizens.
I'll have to defer to our city attorney.
No, it's okay.
It's a discussion among
Yeah.
the council, but certainly you can amend that tonight if you were so inclined and pass it that way.
Well, Val and I have had this discussion. If we could ever get the budget under control, we could give the money back to the people through property tax, reduce the mills. That's really it. Just like the school did. The school went ahead and reduced their mill levies by getting the 1% sales tax, and then also refinancing their debt. So just some food for thought.
And as it goes down, then of course, in order to raise it, the voters would have to vote on it being raised back up, should you find that you were ever in the need of having to supplement the budget. So
Right.
that's I think the legal concern.
And I think that would be an interesting discussion for council after the budget's passed on all the taxing entities and when they're up. I mean, when's the library up, for example? Do we even know?
Yes, but Councilman Carr is recommending or is suggesting that we amend this resolution tonight. And I don't disagree with that, but I would like to know what the impact then would be on the 2018 budget.
It looks like it'd be about 25,000.
Okay.
Yeah. To go from 16.249 to 16?
Correct.
25,000.
250,000.
No.
From you know what? Val and I did 15. I think that's when we were, or I'm sorry. It's been a long night. It's 24. I went down to. He wants to reduce.
What Val asked for provides about a $25,000 savings.
Yeah.
No, a $25,000 lack of revenue.
Decrease
in revenue.
I think we're all tired. Never mind.
$25,000 decrease in revenue.
Which reduces the fund balance.
Correct.
So why would we do that now?
It sounds good.
I personally think it's a future discussion. I don't believe it's warranted here because we are, but with Val's savings, yes, it's warranted, but.
I would support it.
But I mean, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we have not gotten there.
Well, we are there right now. We're being asked to approve this resolution tonight. We can legally decrease a mill levy. We can't increase it.
Goes to the voters.
And that's why I went for a small increment, just to get a trajectory, frankly, instead of something silly like 10% or something.
It probably won't come as a surprise to you that I think this has a negative impact on the budget. Yes, it's $26,000, but you've shown concern tonight about the fund balance. This would reduce it more. It's half of a police officer position. It's multiple security cameras. The most important thing I think you need to consider is that once you reduce it, then you must go back to the voters to increase it. Maybe this has some point in the future, from an administration perspective, this will make the challenge that you've given me even more difficult. We operate on a pretty fine line as it is. I've heard all the comments tonight, but you get to make this choice, and then we get to try to continue to provide those services that you've all spoken about. In every one of your comments, you said, and many of the comments from the audience, save money, keep the level of services. Folks, that just doesn't happen. So I, as staff, would not be in favor of supporting that. If you decide to do that, we'll do the best we can to continue the level of services that this community deserves.
The amount that the average property owner would save by this decrease would be minuscule. Is that a word?
You have a sense for that?
Well, sure, I can.
Somebody?
Yeah, if it's 16 divided by 16.249, that gives you 98.5%. I don't know, let's say it's $2,500 is somebody's home property tax bill. That's $38 or $3 a month. I realize it's a savings, but that's the impact.
Al, if you'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to amend the mill rate listed at 16.249 to 16.0.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Suzanne?
Thank you. Matthews?
No.
Swinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
No.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
No.
Levy?
No.
Motion fails 4-2.
Thank you. We're back to the administrative approving resolution number 820.
I move approval of Resolution 820 as originally presented.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Swinier?
Are we voting on the mill levy?
Yes. At 16.249.
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Next one.
And Mike, thank you very much. You're still doing configurations, are we?
I appreciate
Okay.
What's that?
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I'm moving on to agenda item number 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. I don't have anybody else signed up. Anybody else like to speak at the podium tonight? Okay, if not, we'll move on to mayor's report. And I know I have some events here I'd like to share. First, I want to thank the entire community. We have one of the finest facilities, amenities for our community that they've asked for a number of years, and had a great opening last Sunday. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, 800 or 900 attendees or so. 600 to 900. I will assure you this, that A, it was free, so B, everybody had a smile on their face, but I think first and foremost actually is everybody's just thrilled with the facility. Again, I've been concerned, as others are, that it's going to be a hard thing to sustain. And so I can tell you all this to start with. There's pent-up demand. I think we'll do well early. Our customer service and the leadership at the pool has been outstanding, Cindy. So thank you very much. I always said you could build the nicest facility in the world. If you don't provide great customer service, it really doesn't make any difference. I'm kind of in the customer service business, so I understand that. And we're off to a great, great start. I think anybody that's heard any feedback, it's all been positive. So certainly thanks to David, thanks to staff, thanks to the whole community. It's something you've wanted for a long time. We've got it. Please, please, please support the Woodland Aquatic Center. It is a great, great facility. So thank you very much. Friday, November 10th from 9:30 to 10:45, Woodland Park School District, Veterans Day Assembly in the Woodland Park High School Gymnasium. You all know how emotional I get about these kinds of things. Please, please, please try to attend this event. It's unbelievable. I mean, pay some respect to our veterans. Do everything you can to be there that day. Tell your friends. I think Saturday's the national holiday.
Correct.
Friday, are things closed?
Friday's the federal holiday.
Friday's the federal holiday. So for those that can, I think it's as important an event as we can support. I've been to it for a couple of years now. You will cry. You will be amazed at our children in our community and their respect for our veterans, and you'll be amazed at the leadership of Dan Williams and others that bring this event to fruition. I don't know anybody that can disagree with what I'm saying now. This is not a budget issue. This is a community issue, and everybody needs to be there if at all possible. You will be glad you attended. Saturday, November 11th from 5 to 7, the Veterans Day celebration at the Cultural Center that's hosted by the American Legion. And again, another great event. If you want to see the veterans of the past, the folks that are responsible for us being here today and supporting them, that's the event to go to. That Cultural Center, the last couple of years when I've got to attend, has been overflowing, and it's emotional. It's great to meet some of these. I mean, we even had 3 or 4 World War II vets there last year. I don't know how many are still left. You may know better than I.
I don't, Mayor.
But it is a phenomenal event.
In Woodland Park, Delaware County, we have one
left.
Left.
One left. But a number from certainly Korea, Vietnam, and you can hear great stories and just share in the celebration. There's just, can't think of anything better.
Actually, I think former Mayor Carroll Kinney is a World War II veteran. He would be of that era.
And I got to meet him. If he's the only one, you'd enjoy meeting him. Council, I would really ask you to show up for those 2 events if at all possible, and certainly the whole community. Okay, that's all I have. Ms. Harvey?
One other event on Saturday is the Clock Tower Condominium grand opening, ribbon cutting. That's our Habitat for Humanity project, and that ceremony will be at 1100 at the Pavilion. Down the hill from a great project. I went through the project yesterday with Ben and Jamie Caperton, and it's a true asset to the community and a true testimonial to the input of the community as well. So I hope to see you there.
1100 equates to
11 o'clock a.m.
Val?
I use military time, and everybody yells at me all the time. 1800, it's 1800. We show up at 1800. What's that? Anyway. I want to commend city staff about something that never gets talked about. There's all these nice reports in the packet that are extensive, very detailed, and just fabulous. There's tons of information there. The public would be well served to see what's going on with the staff and all their activities. It's tremendous reports, and they're concise and wonderful. And to that effect, Cindy Keating makes my job as the liaison to the Parks and Rec Board almost useless. She puts out this unbelievable report, and I say, well, here it is, there's nothing more to report. But she puts out a spectacular report every month, as do all these people you see up here in the dais on that side. I would recommend that the community really take a hard look at those from time to time, because they really show what the city is doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenny?
Not really anything. I think Pat Hisloff covered everything pretty well for Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, so I'll let it go at that.
Thank you, sir. Paul?
I would like to thank all the volunteers. I also appreciate the city staff. These meetings are always a learning experience for me. I would like to pass one thing on. Public safety has been my one goal, and that was my one goal. I want to see these street projects go forward, but I must say, in my professional opinion, it is not the appropriate way to evaluate these projects by not having a complete design and 3 qualified contractors bidding the job and an estimate, so we can see the dollar value and understand what the projects encompass. And I just throw that out as just my advice. I would like to see a completed engineer of the project and 3 competitive bids, so I could understand the pricing and be all for it. I pray that the pool is a great success, as it is a great asset to the community. It is something that we should be proud of and support. I support our veterans. I also support all our men and women in uniform that provide us with safety, police department, fire department. It's extremely important. They deserve our respect, and I certainly appreciate you guys and gals doing the work. I'm humbled, and I wish everybody a good night and a safe trip home.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sawyer.
How do I follow that?
Hard to
follow that. Just a quick report on the DDA. We did have a workshop last Tuesday, I believe. We are looking at streamlining the TIF process. We're looking at possible point system. We're looking at different criteria. We're looking at maybe taking a moratorium for TIFs for 6 months until we streamline this process. Take the guessing game out of it, take the subjectiveness out of it. I believe this is the right path for the DDA, make all TIF agreements very similar so we're not looking at different TIF agreements and having different criteria on each one. We've looked at a lot of TIF agreements from other communities, and they seem to have streamlined the process. I believe that's our next step, and if there is a TIF, the applicant will know exactly what they need to do, and the DDA will know exactly. We won't be sitting here adding our personal agenda to it. And I believe this recent issue with natural grocers kind of brought that to the forefront, that we had some personal agendas, and I don't believe that is needed when we're looking at TIF for a company. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. There is no DDA meeting on the 7th. We've moved it to the 14th.
Thanks, Noel.
Thank you.
We live and learn, don't we?
What?
We live and learn.
Yeah, definitely.
Great job by the DDA taking that new approach. I think that's going to behoove everybody. Okay, we'll move on to the city attorney report. Thank you very much, Mr. Buttery.
Thank you, Mayor. A few quick things. Report from special projects.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Couple things that have been going on. Considerable time on Main Street working on a strategic plan, so I do believe that there will be some information to report to Council on the 16th about Main Street. We're continuing to work with PPACG through a grant for a website update. We'll be working on, as much as we can, getting the website ADA compliant. A little bit more user-friendly, both for our internal and external customers, really trying to limit the disruption to staff and trying to transfer this website information over, and then also making it mobile-friendly, which right now we're not. We discussed at the budget session a little bit about the parking and walking downtown. We had our action meeting last week. It really was good for us to have an outside perspective on downtown. We've already had some quick wins through CDOT. Ben was able to have some conversations with CDOT about crosswalks, as well as maybe a descriptive sign on the Hawk system that when the red light is flashing, you treat it as a four-way stop. We're still trying to get that message across. At our meeting with CDOT, they were very pleased with the data collection that we did, really as a first step. Sally mentioned we're working on the sidewalk plan that came out of that, and then looking at moving forward with a technical assistance grant to address overall downtown signage clutter, pedestrian safety, business kiosks, that sort of thing, and really bring in CDOT on a long-term discussion about Highway 24.
Okay. Questions for Jane?
Do you have any scheduled meetings with CDOT?
Not right now, no.
Okay, thank you.
We will be scheduling, we do a quarterly meeting, so we'll be scheduling one of those relatively soon.
Thank you.
Of course. Suzanne?
Thank you, David. As soon as we approve the budget, we move into election season. So I have a couple of dates that I'd like to talk to you about and let you know what's coming up. This year, the election is on April 3rd, 2018, as you probably know by now. We have, the mayor's term is open, he's not term limited, and the three council members, Ken Matthews, John Schaefer, and Noel Sawyer, their terms are all open, and none of them are term limited either. On Wednesday, December 11th, we are having a prospective candidate open house. So for anyone interested in becoming a council member or running for office, we would invite you to come and find out what it's all about. We'll have current council members there, the city attorney, the city manager, myself, and we'll just talk and answer any questions you may have about running for office. So that's December 11th here in the council chambers beginning at 6 p.m. The other dates that I'd like for you to be acknowledging and know of is January 2nd is the first day that candidates that are running for office can pull petitions. So anyone that is interested in running for office, the first day you can start circulating your petition will be January 2nd, and those petitions are due back into my office on January 22nd. So you have 20 days to circulate that petition. And as council will recall, and the audience and people at home, you need 25 signatures to be nominated for a candidacy. I just wanted to put that out there, that that's coming up.
God, I don't remember it being so close to New Year's. And
Well,
has
if
it
I
changed?
Can, if we can just talk for a minute, I'll tell
Yeah,
you why.
I'm
If
curious.
If you recall the last election that Ms. Harvey led up the Charter Review Committee,
Right.
we changed the city charter, and now we go along with the Colorado state
Oh.
statutes. So our dates became earlier than they have been in the past, but we're in line now with Colorado state statutes.
Thank you, Carol.
60-day, what did we need? What was the change?
We went from 90 days before the we went from 60 days before the election to now 90 days before the election.
And the benefit is?
That I can just do everything that the state
does.
statute says and.
Simplicity.
Just conform.
Gives her more time.
It's easier for you.
It also gets ballots out to service members who are traveling, who are around the world.
That's a good one.
That was what drove that decision by the state to make their modification.
Good.
So if anyone has any questions, you know where I am, and do not hesitate to call and contact me.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Council, just a couple of reminders to the community. The VERC discussion, Vehicle Review Committee discussion, is scheduled for the council meeting on November 16th. And as the mayor mentioned, that's when we hope to do the first reading of the budget. That's all we have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Council, if you have nothing else, I have no comments on written correspondence, and we appreciate you all coming. And once again, council, everybody here tonight, I really appreciate your approach and your demeanor, and I think we got a lot of things done because of it. So everybody have a great night.
Jesus.